Okay. First off, I guess we'll call order. It's. Is that my hair?
No, it's all of us.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Testing 1, 2. Testing.
You might have to just.
Okay. Will do. Well, welcome everybody, and we'll call the meeting to order here. It's 9:03, 9:04. Welcome everybody. I'm glad that everybody's here. I know everybody has a busy schedule, and we're glad that you're here. We couldn't do the business without you, so thank you for being here. And I don't know who all's on Zoom, but we'll do the roll call this morning. Kim, would you do that for us, please? Oh, we got to do this pledge of allegiance. I'm sorry. We'll do the roll call afterward.
Oh.
Yeah, we'll do the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, welcome. Back on schedule here. All right, we'll have a roll call. Kim, if you do this. Okay.
That's okay. Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
All right, you know the drill. Leo Dutton, excused. Britt Kern.
Here.
Alan Doan.
Here.
Amanda Littleson. She must be late. Amanda Myers will be late. Amy Tenney excused. Andrea Bethel. Brian Gukin. Dave McAlpin. He's excused. Eric Bryson.
Here.
Katie Snipes Ruiz. Here. Lori Barron.
Present.
Megan Mulcahy.
Here.
Rob Weber.
Here.
Scott Twito. He's going to be late. Chantel Gaynor.
Here.
And we have Cody Mercer. That's our
Here.
guest. Brady. And Randy Shipman.
Okay, we'll go ahead and continue on here. We got an echo. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes. I hope everybody had an opportunity to look at the minutes.
Approval as submitted.
Second.
Got a motion by Eric to approve the minutes, second by Katie. Any questions or amendments or any changes to those? No, you're done. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. None opposed, motion carried. Okay. Roundtable discussion. Sure, everybody's got a lot to talk about today, huh? Katie, let's start with you.
Okay.
We'll go that way.
Sure. So since our last meeting in September, it was what I call conference season. So I was at a bunch of conferences. Really enjoyed the Montana Board Crime Control Conference in Billings. I particularly learned a lot from the AI discussion, which I was leading. So that's great. And just enjoyed a fellowship there as well. I just got back from a conference in Wisconsin. It was a mindfulness for judges conference. My husband, prior to going, was calling Katie special yoga retreat. But what I took away from it, which I thought would be helpful to share, because we have a lot of professionals in the room that work a lot of very stressful jobs, is the neuroscience behind it. Ultimately, mindfulness practice, sounds very squishy, but a lot of it's just meditation and thoughtful eating and, enjoying some silence and things like that. Ultimately thickens the frontal cortex, which helps guard against things later in life like Alzheimer's and dementia. And so there's like a lot of neuroscience behind just taking a break. And so not only the negative consequences, which we all hear about, heart disease that caused by stress, but also like the benefits of doing it, which I thought was really helpful. So if you ever want to walk that path, love to share more info with you, but it was really good. And great stuff to bring back from my treatment court. The 12th portion of things are busy. I feel like this time of year, things just do not slow down. I've been getting a lot more search requests over the last, I would say, couple of weeks, which is saying something. Apparently, we're going to be doing a lot of investigating in the new year. So, my treatment court went really well. I was just working with Aaron. We're one of the SCIP beneficiaries, and so I was working with Aaron on an extension because of our EJ grant. We got an extension on EJ grant, but they didn't tell us that we got an extension for like 5 months. It was really great. Thank you, administration. So ultimately, we couldn't spend our SCIP money this last year because filling out our BJ. So we're hopefully getting an extension on our SCIP, and it's great. Ultimately, the SCIP is paying for it. If anyone's interested for my treatment court is transitional housing, and then we're going to be asking for a component to add in a little treatment as well for our violent offenders, which is great that we have that available and have in person, but also that hopefully we can get it. So good things, all the good things happening. Looking forward to this, of course. Everyone will get to suffer through all of my festive clothing next month. So cheers. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Brian, good to have you here still. We can keep you as long as we can.
All right, appreciate it. So just really 30,000 foot view. New Kalispell systems up and running. We have some figures in there now. Just bugs. Our women's prison RFI is done for locations that put in for counties: Bighorn County, Jefferson County, SoCo, and Anaconda. So we men's prison rolling. We have walls. We have a legislative tour next week. Last but not least, nominated for U.S. Marshal by the President, and going through the fun background of federal bureaucracy. Waiting to hear. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Thank you. All right, next, Andrea.
Yeah, we'll update for information as well. Things are being back to normal after in October, but staff are doing well. We're going through some of the healthy turnover right now, which is good. But retiring at 20 to 35 year mark and gaining some fresh blood and new exciting things are on the right.
And looks like we have a board member, right? Is this
Cohen, sorry.
Cohen.
Cohen Mercer. I am the acting director of the Nurse Agency. I am currently applying for my job, so we'll see how that goes. Available for posting. Code Fetters, we recently took on sort of our 20 new attorneys that are new grad students or graduate from law school. But that just remains the main challenge. We still do not get representation of people in the timing we should. There just simply aren't enough lawyers in Montana willing to do criminal defense work, and that just will remain a burning challenge. But we are keeping the ship moving in the right direction, I guess.
Very good. Rob?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not a lot, just that it's cold out in northeastern Montana. So as you know, this weekend, the eastern half of the state, a lot of the agencies are doing their polar plunge for Special Olympics. So if you guys can get out, and observe that and support it. But other than that, I don't have anything.
Mr. Chair, we're going fast today. I'll be fast too. Eric Bryson, Montana Association of Counties. We have our elected officials training next week here in Helena, which will be always interesting because we bring a bunch of elected officials from across the state in for sort of public finance and governance 101. It's always a good opportunity for your elected officials to come and both learn and collaborate and do all the fun things that happen outside of the formal learning environment. We have our midwinter conference coming in February, and I think that's more to the point of the Board of Crime Control. A significant focus of that midwinter conference is going to be on mental health, both as it relates to law enforcement, jails, community-based mental health service provision, the state mental health system. So we've got lined up representatives from DPHHS and Senator Esp and a couple of sheriff's deputies. And so we have a whole day that's going to be really around mental health and the mental health challenges that we have in the state of Montana, which are significant and something that we always talk about sitting around this table. And then finally, I'm still waiting for my call from the FBI on your background check. So if they call, I'm happy to give them any kind of background that I can on Director Gutkin. The other last thing is that since we do have a couple new faces, I'm thinking of Alan Doan in particular. When we get to the point where they do their updates, can we hear about who they are and where they came from and why they're here?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess now we'll go to online here. What do we have online? Chantel, we might as well start with you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm sorry that I can't be there in person, and I'm also going to preemptively apologize. I have to duck out in the middle, but I'll come back. One of my kids is flying into town today. As far as what we have going on, I am working on a great big project that I'm very excited about, and hopefully at some point I can come actually share more about it. But essentially, I am taking all of the studies that have happened in Missoula in the last 10 years around housing, behavioral health, and justice, feeding that through the magic of AI, plus a whole inventory of what we have in town, plus all of the write-ups of best practices and all the various models, using AI to really distill information and help point us in the right direction. It's been a lot to collect all the information, but it's very exciting as it's coming together. So more on that later. And then other than that, things in Missoula are pretty much the same. Similar struggles as I've reported on earlier. One thing that is easing up a little bit, it has been a bit easier to hire people. So that's good. And other than that, I kick it over to Lori.
Morning, everybody. From snowy Kalispell and opening day of ski season on Big Mountain. Just feel like I need to celebrate that.
This is Lori Barrett, by the way.
Oh, hi. Yeah. I thought I said Lori, but sorry.
Lori and Echo is way too much.
That's the real surround sound.
I'll put my update in the chat.
She dead there?
Do you want me to, I mean, is it still echoing? Can you hear me?
Or Mr. Vice Chair, I think that.
Maybe we should hold off until I get it
It might take
fixed.
5 minutes to
Yeah.
fix this. It's really difficult, even with my younger ears, to listen to this.
Yeah,
I
and it's
can't.
the
I
same
can't.
way on this end.
Lori, we'll just hold off. Megan, we'll just hold off for a minute. We're having some issues here with our audio, so we'll try to get that taken care of, please. Be hold tough.
Just go
No way I
off.
can-
And it's recording for 5 minutes or so. Okay.
I have a hard time understanding in general, so understanding double is hard.
But no, I just.
It is.
For better. Can you start that again?
Okay, we'll go ahead and continue on with the roundtable discussion. Do we want to start all over again here with Chantel, or?
We couldn't hear you.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Oh, great. Well, I said a lot of thank yous and I'm sorries for not being there. And the project that I wanted to share about is I have been piloting if I can harness AI to get us to different places in community planning across the broken silos. Well, like the silos aren't broken, they're too rigid is what it is, between behavioral health, justice, and emergency housing and shelter to help us align planning, funding, deal with changes when they come from the feds, all of that. It has been a big lift, and it's pointing to being something quite rewarding. But at the heart of it is taking all of the local studies that we have, putting that up against national guidelines, best practices, adopted models, et cetera. And it's giving us a chance to look at things at a higher level much faster. So more on that as I get further into the project. And then other than that, things in Missoula are mostly the same. We're still struggling with, those broken silos or rigid silos. And the one sunny spot I would say is hiring has started getting a little bit easier. So we've got more qualified candidates, more folks who are looking for roles that they want within city or county or even some of our nonprofits. So it's nice to see that change. And then over to Lori.
Good. And I don't see Lori. Is Lori's not back yet? There we go. Oh, she's listening anyway. There you go, Lori.
Sorry, I had to take a quick break. Hey, thanks for fixing the audio. Lori Barron, the superintendent of the Evergreen School District in Kalispell, representing education. I was saying earlier, today is opening ski day. So we're really excited about the 31-inch base we have on the mountain. Looking forward to getting up there this weekend. Just some updates that are relevant to this group. We have I think the only CRI-J in the state. Is that right? Does that feel right to everybody? No, y'all have got one too, Chantel? Okay. Our Center for Restorative Youth Justice we met last week for the first time in years as a collective, because there's a state law that you're supposed to have a group that gets together, an interagency with county attorneys and SROs and law enforcement and schools, and to discuss student needs. And we got back together last week and are working to improve that relationship as we work with kids. The recidivism is very low for kids who complete the program. A concern that some of us have that I don't think will change. It's just a reality is that, they only work with students 12 and above, age 12 and above, and they do not work with any low level, vaping, smoking, alcohol, the gateway stuff. And so a lot of our kids who start with quiet experimenting end up escalating to significant criminal behavior later, and we're not able to intervene early enough because there's no prosecution of vaping, there's no ticketing of vaping, there's no CRI-J help with vaping. And I'm not looking to put kids into the pipeline of the youth justice, department either, but it's just a conundrum. We can't figure out how to get them help earlier. And by the time it's a real bad crime, maybe if we'd intervened earlier. So it's still a primary concern for me. What are we doing about these lower level criminal offenses from 10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds that, we track these kids, we see them, and they're the ones in the arrest log when they're 18. And so just a frustration. So appreciative of CRI-J and what they're doing. I just wish we could reach more kids for the things that are directly impacting schools and students that aren't being addressed by law enforcement or CRI-J. Vape continues to be our number one criminal activity on campus. And as I just noted, there's no recourse for that outside of the school. And so, we write discipline referrals and we have certain consequences. We're trying to embed education in that. So it's not just punitive, but it's a learning opportunity, but it's really hard because there's no enforcement around it. And then I think Brian mentioned this. I couldn't understand, but maybe one every 10th word he said that, the reentry center opened in Kalispell, and I got to go be a part of that grand opening. And it was just really impressive. Took the full tour, they spent a lot of time explaining security measures to us and support opportunities for mental health and physical security of the surrounding community and work expectations. And I just thought it was a really first-class operation. I felt very good and confident about the facility being in Evergreen, where my school district is. I didn't leave there feeling EBGB, oh my goodness, how are we going to support this? I felt very confident about giving these offenders an opportunity to successfully re-enter our communities. And I just want to commend the director on the work that went into that. And I look forward to seeing it positively impact families in our community by having, their family members closer to them to be able to rebuild that family unit as well. So I'm looking forward to continuing to support the efforts, both as a member of the Board of Crime Control and as the superintendent of the district where it resides. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Lori. You bet. Thank you. Megan.
Hey, good morning. Thanks, everybody. Just kind of a quick update from me. First of all, my name is Megan Mulcahy, and I am the public representative. I work for the Montana Department of Labor and Industry. Between residing in Butte and working for the department, there's just like one major theme, and that would be the financial strain on people. A lot of people I talk to who I work with, like within day-to-day job, they're one paycheck away from being homeless, and it's just so sad and devastating. But I try to bring up a positive when we go through this, and that would be community response. I can't tell you how great it is to see the community donate and take action to help their fellow citizens. So that's just one positive that is just continuous in my everyday life. And that's really all I have. Thanks for letting me appear via Zoom, and yeah, have a good day.
Well, thank you, Megan. And we have Amanda. Welcome, Amanda.
Good morning, everyone. I apologize. I was a few minutes late jumping on. So I am Amanda Littleson, Director of Domestic Violence Prevention Program here at Rocky Mountain Tribal Leaders Council. Currently working on developing a healing curriculum that can be used across the state for Native Americans in treatment or hospitalizations. So it's a big project, and we're just at the funding part right now. We got approved to move forward, so we're just been looking for that funding to bring this through. So we're excited since Medicaid had passed the reimbursement for traditional ways of healing. So we're looking forward to putting something together for the state of Montana. So that's what I'm working on.
Very good. Thank you, Amanda. Amanda, do you know off the top of your head when the next quarterly meeting is for the council?
No, we did have a meeting the other day because of some of the new leadership. They might not be able to get together in December, so it might be the beginning of January. So
Okay, I'll keep in touch with you then.
for sure, I'll let you know.
Good. Thank you. Anybody else online that we have? I guess we're expecting Alan on, and later on, and also who else was that? But we'll catch him when he gets on there. Alan Doan will be on. He's the Montana Department of Justice representative. He'll be online here when we get an opportunity to do that. So
I'm on right now, sir.
oh, okay. Well, welcome.
Thank you. Alan Doan, I'm replacing Jason Johnson as the Attorney General designee. Former legislator, I served on House Judiciary for 4 years, and I've been at the Attorney General's office for 5 years now. So have not dealt directly with the Board of Crime Control, but I've been around the perimeter for several years and legislative sessions now. So glad to be here, and thank you for fixing the sound. And I apologize for not turning my camera on, or the whole meeting would be for me like the first 10 minutes was for everyone. Thank you, guys.
No, thank you, Alan. We're looking forward to meeting you and having you on the board. Okay, and my name is Rick Kern, and I'm the vice chair of the Water Control, and I'm taking over for Leo today. And you might know we'd have all these issues with me being new here. I think Leo did that. But anyway, my representation is up in northeastern Montana, you know, both rural and tribal. And we're having really cold weather, just like everybody else did. You know, I think 2 days here last week were the coldest in the lower 48. You know, it was very cold, that front that came in. But what's going on our reservation is we still have a lot of drugs that are being brought in. We have a couple of homicides that were there. And I'd like to thank all the different agencies that participated in those homicides that we had, you know, the FBI and the Highway Patrol and all the different organizations that were part of that. And also we had, I think, several new recruits and hires that came from the Montana Law Enforcement Academy. You know, it's kind of a first up there, and we're really happy that happened. We're really proud of them for going through that. Normally the process is to go through Artesia, which is down in New Mexico, and it's really a long process. And it really kind of hindered a lot of our recruits because it was just a long ways away and a long time away from their families, you know, so nobody's interested. But I think now that we're going through Montana Law Enforcement Academy, I think it's going to probably pick up a little bit. We'll probably have more candidates going through there. We really appreciate that. And also, we're really proud of the Safe Neighborhoods program that's going on. They've been doing a lot of good work up on our reservation, so we're really happy with that. But other than that, other than just cold weather and whatnot, we haven't had a lot going on. I'd like to get a little bit more involved with Amanda and the Montana Wyoming Tribal Leaders Council with our tribal committee, you know, and get something going there because, you know, not being on the tribal council like I used to be, I don't really get out and get to know what's going on with the other tribes. There's 7 tribes in the state of Montana. Actually, there's eight tribes in the state of Montana, and I don't know really what's going on with a lot of them. I don't have an opportunity to meet with a lot of them. And I think going to the Montana Wyoming Tribal or the Rocky Mountain Tribal Leaders Council, it would be a good service. So whoever's on that committee, I would like to possibly arrange it so we can go to their quarterly meeting so we can find out exactly what they're doing and what's going on, so we can either help them and they can help us and anything that we have going on. So that's what my ask would be a little bit later on. And I think the chairman of that committee is Amanda Myers, I believe, the tribal committee. So I'll get together with her later on and we'll find out what's going on there. But that's what my goal would be. So that's all I have as far as what's going on in my end of the world here. So yeah.
Should we redo any of the ones in the room since people online didn't hear? I know.
Oh, absolutely. We can start over.
Just another reintroduction. It can be brief, but I don't think they heard anything.
Okay, you bet. Well, it's only fair, I think. Yeah. You want to do it again? Or you want to go off the minutes?
Hi. Judge Katie Snipes-Cherlees from the 12th Judicial District. I'm based out of Havre, but I also cover Fort Benton and Chester. My update was essentially that we're continuing to work through grant funding. We just finished out our BGA grant in September, and we are doing an extension on our Burn CS grant for our treatment court. Getting ready for the holidays, just got done with conference season. And really enjoyed conferences. So that was kind of the nicer recap of my ramblings this morning. Also, our agency task force is real busy. So happy holidays to everyone investigating all of the shenanigans along that.
Hey, everybody in Zoom land, Brian, corrections, 4 things. Thank you, Lori, for the kind words. Kalispell Pre-Release Center is going to be great. Women's Prison RFI is done. 4 locations that we're evaluating: Hart, Boulder, Butte, Anaconda, Deer Lodge. Men's Prison walls are up. We're having a legislative meeting in the next couple of weeks at the prison to show them the progress. And then, for those of you that don't know, nominated for U.S. Marshal and going through that background investigation and just waiting to hear about confirmations.
We're going to have a presentation from Randy after this. So you want to go ahead and repeat what you got?
Turn over and getting back to life outside of the walls of the village.
Very good. Go on.
Cohen Mercer. I am the acting director of the Public Defender Office. I am a career public defender. I started in Missoula County 20 some plus years ago. We continue to have challenges with enough attorneys both at a contractor and FTE level, especially in rural places. And that is just an ongoing focus for us. But we did bring on 20 new people. They're recent law school graduates, so there is also positive.
Rob Weber, Chief in Glasgow. I represent the Montana Chiefs of Police. My update wasn't really anything going on, just essentially everything Vice Chair Kern said. Exactly. Exactly. Everything he said.
Good to have you though. Eric?
Eric Bryson, Montana Association of Counties, elected officials training next week, midwinter conference focusing primarily on mental health issues coming up in February. I also put the plug in to say, give us some background information because I was really hoping Alan Doan would be here in person so I can harass him like I used to when he was a legislator. Nice to see you, Alan.
Good. And I guess we have another Amanda on here. Amanda Meyer, do you want to have a little bit of a talk here?
Hi, everybody. So sorry I'm late. I was covering grand jury returns, and so apologies that you had to wait for me. I unfortunately did not hear what everybody else said, so if I Peter on the same thing, let me know. But so I'm Amanda Myers. I go by Mandy. I'm here with the U.S. Attorney's Office. I'm based out of Great Falls. I'm the tribal liaison for our district, so I prosecute drug crimes, but primarily I do violent crime on Rocky Boys in Fort Belknap, although I'm sure, as folks have already mentioned, we are seeing, it seems like a decent uptick in crime recently. Again, not statistical, just anecdotal, and take it for what it's worth. I'm certainly not an important person that can back it up with a data, but just given the work around the office, it seems like we're seeing a little bit of an uptick more recently in things that we hadn't sort of seen months ago, but not a huge update from like the last time that we were here 3 months ago. I think still keep doing the work that we're doing, focusing on drugs and violent crime and all the, sort of Operation Take Back America priorities.
Very good. Good to have you here, Mandy.
Good to see y'all.
Bet. I believe that's pretty much all that are online. So we'll go ahead and move to the next item on the agenda. It's Youth Justice Advisory Council, an overview from Randy. Good to have you here, Randy. Hope you had a good meeting.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
My name is Randy Shipman, and I am the chair of the Youth Justice Advisory Council. So a quick report for you guys. We met yesterday. And just a quick background, I think all of you know, but members are appointed by the governor, and of course it's required in law under the Delinquency, Justice and Delinquency Prevention Reauthorization Act of 2018, and continued by an executive order by Governor Jim Forte. So again, I'm the chair. Mike Chambers is our vice chair. He is the CEO of Yellowstone Boys and Girls League. And we have quite a diverse group of folks on. We have therapists, we have folks that work for OPI, we have educators, we have just a wide variety of folks and really good people. And again, we met yesterday. A few of us were here in person, several were on Zoom. But I had a great meeting and want to talk to you a little bit about that. Of course, the purpose of our council is to submit recommendations regarding state compliance with the federal requirements. Obviously, monitoring is a big deal. And in your packet, I'm not exactly sure what page, but you'll see the 28 different agencies that were monitored this year. We also, of course,
tab 2. Yeah, behind tab 2.
Okay, you can see the different agencies that were monitored this year, and that's part of our responsibility. Of course, we review and provide recommendations about the grant application. We have served over 2,800 youth this past year, so excited about that. And another thing we do is seek regular input from juveniles currently under the jurisdiction of the juvenile justice system. We sometimes have a problem with this, and a lot of you here are involved in law enforcement. So if you know of anyone that would maybe be mandated or would be willing to serve on our committee, we're supposed to have 3 youth and or adults that have had kids in the system, and we would love to have more of those. We do have a couple, but we always need, they grow up and then they move on and go to college and do other things. So But we do seek their input in a variety of different ways. And then probably the biggest thing we did yesterday, and I would ask if you guys would approve this at the end of my report, is the recommendations for the governor's report. We have 6, and I'm just going to read those kind of slow so that you guys know what we're asking you to approve. We approve them, and then they, of course, come to you guys. And if you approve them, then they will be in the report, which we do every 4 years. So the first thing, and by the way, the first 4 are all, and they are on the overhead there. The first 4 have sort of been ongoing. The 5 and 6 are a little bit new, but the first 4 have kind of been ongoing for the last few years. Number 1 is that the Montana Public Schools should encourage the use of programs in school which help youth build character, handle difficult emotions, and solve real-world problems. The second one, courts and probation officers should consider time served during sentencing for juveniles held in pretrial detention facilities. Most of you probably already know this. I learned this yesterday. That, the law states that that is in the law for adults, that is not in the law for juveniles. So we would be interested in either going to the legislature to make that law, or at least bringing attention to that. Number 3, the Montana legislature should consider a study to address long court processing times for juveniles in detention facilities. And goes a little bit with 2. And then number 4, the state should collaborate with the Office of Public Instruction to invest Title I Part D funds in programs and continuing services that support youth after their detention or probation or both ends. And then the last 2 are a little bit newer. The state should sustain and grow funding for mentoring, after-school programs, school threat assessment support, which is an OPI requirement for schools, truancy reduction, and restorative justice initiatives. And the last one is the Youth Justice Advisory Council should learn how diverse stakeholders are increasing access to counseling, crisis stabilization, and family preservation services, particularly in rural and tribal communities as it relates to youth involved in the juvenile justice system. We had a robust discussion about a lot. Executive director, of course, was there, and a lot of folks. Jeremy, our juvenile justice specialist, was very helpful. He had done a lot of research and put a lot together. But these are the 6 that we landed on. We didn't want to, I guess, have too many. Of course, you can have as many as we think are important. But these are the 6 we really landed on. And again, I would ask you guys on behalf of the YJC to approve these recommendations to go into the governor's report. Kayla, do you have anything to add or anything else?
I just really appreciate Randy's leadership yesterday. It was a really great meeting, and we spent at least 2 hours discussing recommendations. We brought to the council, we looked at the past from 2021 to 2024. We looked at the recommendations that have gone in the governor's reports and to see what trends there are. And so when Randy referenced the first 4, those 4 have been consistent through the last governor's report since 2021. So they pulled those out and then reworked them to create the first 4 here. We also talked about NBCC bringing to the council basically a process or a plan as to how to create recommendations. And we do that on a yearly basis. So we're generating data to inform the governor's office and the board. And what I mean by that is if we continue to make recommendations, what trends are we seeing with recommendations? Is it, 30% are diversion based? Are they, the majority of them are addressing mental health? So coming up with a process on how we're going to create recommendations, format recommendations, and then what are we tracking? So I'm going to work with Criselda and Jeremy to create a plan and just really figure out how YJC wants to do recommendations moving forward. That way, when we get to next year and then the year after that, we just continue that plan to develop recommendations in a format. This format that we did yesterday, it's tough. I think it's challenging because it requires a lot of collaboration, communication, brainstorming, but we did who should do what when. So instead of saying, we want to encourage whatever it may be, we really need to think through who are we asking to do that, and what should they do, and the time frame that we want them to do it in. So the format was who should do what when. And so we try to capture that here in these, as you can see the format they're in. But again, it's the first meeting we had about recommendations with me and Criselda and Jeremy, and we're going to think through a plan on how we want to do this moving forward. In future governor's reports, maybe we can provide additional data to say, over the last 2 years, the YJC has identified, X amount of recommendations that are, here's the barriers to this recommendation, here's the benefits, maybe the priority level. And another thing we talked about is the impact. So if you're familiar with the Maternal Mortality Review Committee, that's through DPHHS, they have recommendations that they do, and they follow the recommendations of the CDC, but they also assign a level of impact to the recommendations. And so it's something that the YJC can consider for these, is looking at the recommendation in, is it a provider responder impact? So is it an impact on law enforcement or medical folks or school staff or whatever? Or is it a community impact? Or is it a systemic, a system level impact facility? So there's just different ideas we have. And we're going to do some research and bring it to the March meeting and figure out how we want to go from there.
Mr. Vice Chair, if I may add, the executive director articulated it way better than I could, but that was a big part of it is that having process. So that was really good. And the other piece to that process that she alluded to was there were a couple of other kind of big ones, but we didn't have enough information. So that was a big piece to us now to try to go out and find some more data on that before we bring it forward to you guys, or ultimately put it in the governor's report. So thank you. I'd be happy to try and answer questions.
I have some questions, Mr. Vice Chair.
Yeah.
If I may. Two things. One, I don't see anything about mitigation of status offenses like Lori talked about. You mentioned truancy under number 5, but not the drinking or vaping or any of that stuff. So I'm wondering if you could add something about mitigation of status offenses in number 5 is one of the recommendations. And then under number 2, I'm a little confused. In my former days as a youth probation officer, credit for time served in the adult system was related to sentences that were durational. In the juvenile system, if they're doing the 206 or 208 transfers, those are treated separately considerably, but youth court placements are about treatment duration. So how do you give credit for time served on a pretrial basis for a kid that you're sending to a treatment facility?
I was kind of wondering the same thing, that how does that work?
The disposition's not time.
No, not necessarily, unless you're coming, unless you're saying, well, unless it's a community-based commitment. But even then, if you're looking at rehabilitation, I just don't know how effective that's going to be.
Time and service was the model that used to be operated in the youth system. So I'm curious and confused about the credit for time served portion of it, unless it's the transfer from youth to adult and the disposition is time related. A Pine Hills placement, for example.
Yeah, you bring up some good points. I think to answer your first question, that was one of the status events. That was one of the things that we just didn't have enough data on. That we talked about that quite a bit. And I think that the next time we bring these forward, I think we will see a little bit more on that, hopefully. As far as number 2, that was number 5.
Yeah.
On number 2, what the discussion was, and the judge might be able to help us on this a little bit better, but and we do have Judge Nicely sitting on our committee as well, and of course she chimes in, but between going to court, of course, she was in it out. But I think what they're really talking about, one thing was mentioned was when a child goes to Miles City and then they're waiting on paperwork and stuff like that to get back into school, and they should be able to get back in right away, but paperwork and all that. And the other thing that was specifically mentioned was in terms of when they're held in pretrial detention centers or facilities was the backlog, the backup. And so they might sit there for I'm making this up, for 6 months.
Sure.
They should have only sat there for 1 month. As far as like the sentencing and the treatment you're talking about, that's a great valid point. But in terms of giving them credit for time served, which apparently is in the adult law.
It is.
For a bunch of different reasons.
But yeah,
Not in the juvenile.
Financial reasons, shortened disposition reasons, and in the juvenile system, I just don't see how it works.
I just don't understand the point. Basically, I was like, okay. I mean, when we're talking about this, it just doesn't quite make any sense. But
And to me, this is a list of things that we're going to proactively try and implement.
Correct.
So we're going to put effort into something that I don't, and it's probably just me. I don't understand why we put time and effort into making legislative changes to have a credit for time served for juveniles when time served and dispositional sentences for any duration aren't ever a factor in dispositions of youth court cases, except for Pine Hills Place.
well, and just in my experience sitting as a district court judge, and perhaps Cohen, you can chime in on this too, 'cause you're working in the same system I am, is we're not keeping kids in jail, like, unless they don't have, most of the time it's because we don't have any place else to put them, that their home is not appropriate for their needs. It's usually a therapeutic reason that we're keeping them at the detention center. Very few and far between are there for punitive reasons. I'm trying to think of one in the last 7 years. I've been sitting on the bench where I'm keeping a kid in jail for punitive reasons. It's usually not.
I think it's prohibited in the Youth Court Act.
Correct. I was like, so I don't quite, that's why I'm like sitting here like,
Well, and that's exactly why we're bringing it forward to you
Yeah.
guys. And so if you think that number 2 either should be reworded or stricken, I guess, then that's, that's why we're bringing it. And you're right, it is going to go to the governor, and the idea is that, we want to, so to speak, push that. And so
I am.
Doesn't make sense, then.
I am very supportive of shorter durations on pretrial incarceration for kids and adults. Whatever the holdup is for a kid on a pretrial basis, sitting out of state, usually in a youth detention facility, is a cost borne by the county. So I'm super supportive of whatever we can do to eliminate whatever obstacles there. But it's not like an adult who gets credit for time served on the disposition that shortens their incarceration or length of supervision. It's not the same. So I don't care if we modify it, amend it, or just somebody gets back to me and helps me understand why that's a significant
And I
thing.
think for us as the Juvenile Justice Council, I think the genesis is that, we talk a lot about sight and sound separation. We talked a lot about shackling and not doing that to youth.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about trying to, obviously these youth are in trouble and there's some consequences to their actions and such, but trying to keep them, try not to introduce them to the whole system with the hope that they don't continue in that system. So trying to prevent.
I think at least our old philosophy was pretrial youth detention was protection. That was to protect the kid from committing more crimes, from whatever. A lengthy number of things had to happen before they went before a judge for a placement order. And so it was protective custody.
Sure.
That's essentially the way we looked at it back in the day. And if things have changed, I need a better explanation.
I'd ask if you have any thoughts.
So one, kids are entitled to the rights that adults have. So there's that point, that if there's an entitlement. Now, I get the point that if a kid's sentence is till 18, it's till 18, and it doesn't matter where they are in terms of discharging early. But I mean, my slight pushback is, of course, the system, as the adult system, believes it is doing good and helping people. But for the kid that is sitting in custody, I mean, they sat in custody and that should not be not recognized. Again, I don't know how it works with 18, but in terms of something that's spilling over into an adult sentence, I guess I'm almost surprised by this in the sense of, I don't know how they couldn't get credit for time served to a adult time of, a 5-year adult sentence, but.
Well, and as I'm sitting here thinking, we have a case, and we have had cases where ultimately they are tried as an adult. So I don't see why they would then get credit, and that absolutely tracks and makes sense. I just am again thinking like, oh, you're committed, till 18, or oh, you're committed until, and yeah, so I just don't quite get it.
If it's was it the 208 transfer that tries them as an adult?
Yeah.
If it's that, I'll absolutely give them credit for But I think a better goal for their Youth Justice Advisory Council would be limit pretrial incarceration. However you do that, I mean, that to me would be a better goal. Let's minimize the amount of time that we lock kids up. I don't know, you could word that better.
Communities and whatever, right?
Yeah.
The whole broader
Yeah.
point about like,
And that might come down to, not that I'm necessarily saying like, oh, we need to have, the same kind of things that we have in DN cases, but in DN cases, we, if kids are removed from their parents, we have to have a hearing within so many days. We have to have status hearings. And so my practice has generally been as the sitting district court judges, if we have a kiddo in custody and there's any way that we can get them out of custody, then I'm probably having a status hearing every 2 weeks to talk about where we're at in getting that kiddo out of custody. Have we gone through the application process to get them to a therapeutic placement? In the interim, can we get them into a therapeutic group home? In the interim, like, what are we doing to bring them services? And not that I'm saying, that should be the gold standard. I'm not the gold standard judge, but maybe talking about those kind of things, like, should we have some sort of protocols if kids are in custody that we should be having, say, status hearings every 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever's most functional to discuss why are they there?
Yeah. I was just going to ask that, who's taking notes and minutes here? Are you guys having a problem understanding who's talking, or do you want each person to recognize themselves? I know everybody, so I understand what's going on, but are you having any problem with that? Should we recognize each person as they talk, or? And anybody that's online too, if you want to jump in, I guess, just go ahead and do that. It's just kind of a conversation that we're having on this YJC. We have an action item too, actually. So if we're going to recommend supporting it, I guess we're going to have a lot of changes here if that's the case. But yeah, this.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just one really quick question, clarification. It's great that it's going to be in the governor's report and go to the governor's office. What's the plan on the legislature? Are you going to be bringing it in?
Brian, Chair, this is Kayla Bragg. I don't know how the YJC, or the agency has moved recommendations forward in the past. One thing that we're starting now is to track it, right? So tracking the status and outcomes. That way we can see how over the last 6 months or year, has this changed? Was it legislation that impacted this recommendation? Is it not relevant anymore? That kind of thing. So I think it's something that maybe the board, we can talk about on how we want to move the YJC and ultimately the board's recommendations forward, because I'm not familiar how that's been done in the past. But it could certainly be something where we talk to CJOC or Law and Justice Interim Committee or something like that. And if you have a past practice that the board has done on these recommendations, please let me know, because I'm not aware.
Well, it doesn't sound to me like we're ready to make any kind of a support of this recommendation from YJC as far as a motion or anything. So I guess I'm not sure how we want to handle that either.
Mr. Vice Chair, is there a time issue here? Like, when does this have to be packaged up and submitted?
There is.
And it's today?
No, it's likely by the end of the month, we'll submit to the governor's office.
Mr. Vice Chair, I make a motion to just direct the Youth Justice Council to amend number 2 in a way that they see fit, that addresses expedited pretrial youth detention. And if that includes it, that's my motion. But then let me just say, if that includes a provision that gives credit for time served, I'm fine with that. But I think the larger issue for the Youth Justice Council is to try and address things like the judge said. What are we doing as a system to address kids stuck in pretrial detention? That's a great goal, I think, that we could do without specifically saying we're going to pass legislation to duplicate credit for time served in the adult system. So that's my motion. And I give them full discretion to do whatever they need and submit it back to us by email or whatever else we need to do to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Eric. Did you get the changes that he also wanted? Okay.
You're so good.
I'll second.
Good. Okay, got a second by Rob. Is there any other discussion or any other changes that you'd like to make on this motion? Yes, Randy?
I appreciate that. Because of the timeliness of it, I appreciate you go ahead and moving on that, and we will take that your recommendations, and I'm not sure how we'll fix that, but we'll get that done and then move that. Thank you.
Okay, did we have any discussion from the Zoom?
So I was gonna say, this is Amanda Myers. I just wanted to say, I obviously am not as familiar with the state system as I am the federal system, but I know on the federal side, we have a lot of very strict requirements about detention of juveniles in any of our matters where they're addressed as juveniles. Obviously, if they get transferred to adult status, it's sort of a different process, which is all a long-winded way to say, I agree. I think it makes a lot more sense with number 2 to have a broader goal of, since supporting legislation to reduce, pretrial detention of juveniles, because I agree, at least on the federal side, the time served wouldn't make sense with a number of our juvenile matters because they are not incarcerated as punishment. Everything is geared toward rehabilitation, and time served on the adult system is entirely about they have been incarcerated as part of their punishment, and so there should be a reflection of that. And so I think I agree anyway that a broader scope that really focuses on the issue of what we're trying to address is that we don't want kids stuck in pretrial detention any longer than they need to be. I think would be beneficial.
Oh, very good. Yes.
Whether it's also labeled of course and probation officers don't have any discretion of whether or not to give credit for time served. That strictly comes from the jurisdiction of the court. So I don't know if you want to strike the probation officer part or have the attorneys included in that discussion, but what's in the judgment is what probation would actually be.
We actually did talk about courts, attorneys, probation, so yeah, makes sense.
Okay. Colin, did you have your hand up? Did you want to make a comment?
I will just slightly push back, and I fully appreciate the spirit that we all want the juvenile justice system to be about rehabilitation. But as to an individual human being who has been incarcerated away from their family and their life, that also feels like punishment, and they should have the same rights that adults have. That's just, so I know we cannot, I just caution, again, because I would say, I believe corrections is designed to correct and to help, and that's our goal for it. Now, sometimes it's just removing people from public circulation, but we can't, just because we believe we're doing good, throw out due process and the rights of people. And so that's just, we can get carried away by saying, oh, we're just helping, so they don't get the same rights that an adult would.
Any other discussion?
My only comment, Chair, would be, if based on the motion that's on the table here, and the time frame of getting this to the governor's office, we are limited in getting a meeting with YJC to have the conversation to create an amendment and then get it back to the board. So I think we need to make a decision on a vote on the motion, but one consideration would be if we can have an amendment to number 2 here, make an amendment to the language that we want to see, and then have a vote on that amendment, and then a vote on all 6 going to the governor's report. So amend it here, and then it goes right into the governor's report. Is the one suggestion.
So you're asking us to
want to write? Yeah, they want to write it right now.
Yes, sure.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Yes, sir.
We have a motion on the table for the amendment, but in the spirit of the conversation that was just had there, I think it'd be pretty easy to modify number 2 to just say something like evaluate options to limit the time of pretrial incarceration for juveniles and allow for consideration of credit for time served.
Okay, that's the amendment to the motion. Is that okay with the second?
Yeah. Yes. Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, Scott's right on.
I figured Dwight was going to yell at me for something today.
Scott.
Members of the board, sorry for the late arrival, but as a person who's been involved in the drafting of the Youth Court Act for the last 30 years, I kind of have some expertise in this world, including recent changes to the Youth Court Act. I took out the transferable drug possession offenses mandated when a youth reaches the age of 17. I've studied these issues beyond probably anybody in that room. You need to be terribly careful with sending a message from the Board of Crime Control that you're mandating how long juveniles are held in pretrial detention facilities. There's a variety of reasons. If you look at the dispositional section of the Youth Court Act, and the judge can certainly attest to this if she's handled a lot of juvenile matters, oftentimes it's a culmination of all of the things that the youth has done during their youth career that leads to some sort of detention placement. Pre-trial detention is absolutely 100% given credit, especially if the youth is transferred to adult court. They're specifically entitled to credit for time served. I don't know where that recommendation came from. I'm thinking they're thinking a youth, but absolutely that's been decided by the Supreme Court. That's just not true. The second component to this is what would you have me do when I had 13 juveniles in my youth detention facility for an extended period of time, all of them charged with deliberate homicide or rape? You got to be really careful because not all things are created equal. In my experience, the judges that I have trained or have practiced in front of look at the least restrictive setting for juveniles 100% of the time and should. And typically release conditions are already minimized to the nth degree. So I just kind of question where that comes from, but I would hate to have a rigid recommendation from the board as to say this is how many days you can hold a youth. You also have to remember that oftentimes the treatment is limited in the youth court setting by when the youth reaches certain age points, 18, 21, or 25. You've got to be abundantly clear that you may be doing a disservice to the juvenile if you say, well, we're going to give credit for the 90 days that they spent in youth detention, as hard as that is, but that's going to negate the treatment that the youth providers are attempting to do before they hit one of those age out categories. So anyway, you guys have probably talked about that. Sorry, I got on late. I had a bad link. But anyway, those are just my thoughts.
Mr. Vice Chair, just in response to that, Scott, we did talk about those early on, that the dispositions in youth court cases aren't durational like they are in adults, and they're mostly treatment oriented. I think the genesis of the conversation about what we're saying is not to put a hard and fast day requirement or area or time frame requirement on youth detention, but just like you recognized that the youth justice system in Montana is set up to try and provide the least restrictive environment for the kids. So as a policy statement from the Youth Justice Council, what I'm suggesting is that we just acknowledge that, and I don't think it makes any operational differences other than as a policy statement, we're saying we want to try and minimize youth pretrial detention as much as possible. I don't think anybody disagrees with that.
Chair Eric, to answer your question, says that already in the Youth Court Act Declaration of Purpose, the actual statute.
Yep. Yeah. It started with my complaint about the credit for time served and how it's not applicable from the youth to the adult side. And so I'm trying to be kind and modify it in a way that we could just get some consensus.
Okay, where are we at?
Follow the statute.
Well, I'm sticking with my language. Go ahead.
Chair, was it brought up that the Law and Justice Interim Committee recently met on all this stuff?
I believe so.
Meaning that the study bill for the Youth Court Act, which passed the legislature, is currently right in front of the Law and Justice Interim Committee. I think they just had a meeting less than a few weeks ago to discuss a lot of the issues and similar recommendations to what it's up on the board.
So for my third amendment, I'm just going to move to strike number 2 and we'll approve it as is.
I'd second that.
got a motion on the floor yet, though.
I withdraw all my previous motions. This is not an amendment to the second substitute motion. I withdraw all my previous motions. This is the only motion I'm making. Eliminate number 2.
Okay, so we're gonna eliminate the first motion that you had. Is that okay with the?
Everything else that I said is all garbage. A motion
Okay.
is to eliminate number 2.
All right,
And then
so,
approve the rest?
so that's okay with the second to the motion? We're just gonna eliminate the motion?
Yep.
Okay, so we want another motion then,
I think we got to vote on this one, right?
to eliminate it? Okay, we got a motion to eliminate the motion, I guess.
Eliminate number 2.
Eliminate number 2 in the motion. All right, everybody else had any discussion on it?
Chair.
Yeah.
So the motion before us is to eliminate the number 2, courts and probation offices should consider time served during sentencing for juveniles held in pretrial detention facilities as a 2025 YJAC recommendation in the governor's report. That's the motion. And then I think we should have discussion on number 3, as to Scott's point, that a study is ongoing now in the legislature. And maybe there's a motion on that one as well.
Okay. All right, any more discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, now we gotta, yes.
Mr. Chairman, it's unclear to me exactly what we were voting on, and being a new member here, I want the record to reflect that I abstained from voting.
Who is that? Who is that?
Alan.
Okay, all right. You got that in minutes? 1 abstention. All right, now we have another motion on hand.
Well, I guess, Mr. Vice Chair, I'd like Mr. Twido to talk about sub 3. Montana legislature should consider a study to address long court process times for juveniles in detention facilities. Are you saying that's already underway and under the purview of the interim committee?
Chair, Board Member Bryson, I don't know specifically what the interim committee talked about in the study bill, but every time that the Youth Court Act and juvenile justice issues have been studied, they always talk about shortening the court processing times or the time frame in which it takes to prosecute youth offenders. But I just know that they are talking about that as that study bill passed. That's all that I'm saying. I was not privy to the Law and Justice Interim Committee meeting last go round. I can just tell you that they always look at processing times.
Mr. Vice Chair, with that, I would move approval of the 2025 Youth Justice Advisory Council recommendations as amended.
Okay, we got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
I'll second it.
Okay, second by Rob. Any discussion? Yes.
Question on number 4, the state, who is the state there that says they should collaborate with OPI?
So I think that would be like the legislature.
Okay.
Who's the one that would potentially earmark money towards that? Which, by the way, the Office of Public Instruction already federally receives Title I Part B funds, and we're saying that maybe the state could also put money towards that and collaborate or cooperate with the Office of Public Instruction to disperse that to schools that have those programs.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? You satisfied with that answer?
Yes.
Okay. And any other discussion on the motion? And hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. None opposed, motion carried. All right, I think we got that all cleared up.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you all you members for all that you do.
Well, thanks for all that you do on the YJC. You bet, it's very important. Oh, Andrea, did you have something, Andrea? Oh, just waving. Oh, I don't know what's going on behind me here, so. All right, then if there's no other discussion on YJC, thank you for that presentation, and we'll move forward now to the Burns State Crisis Intervention Program. Kayla,
Yeah.
take it away.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So at my first meeting, there was a lot of discussion about the gun safety campaign. And so, and I recognize that time is of the essence. And we talked about the, somehow collaborating with the Montana Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. But I think we need to make a decision. My recommendation is that we need to make a decision at this meeting on how we're going to move forward. And so, being new, I kind of wanted to start at the beginning and just do a quick overview of Burn Skip and then work through some research that I've done on gun safety campaigns. And then we'll move into the ARC, or the Anti-Drug Committee report. So with Burn Skip, the mission is to prevent or reduce crime and violence, but there is a focus on gun violence and programs and initiatives that target those risk factors. We receive the state share, so a 60% state share. We receive a local pass-through that goes to law enforcement agencies or whoever it may be, whatever subgrantees, but those are fully passed through to those subgrantees. And then there's a third category of the less than 10,000 pass-through requirement. So with, and the last thing we'll look at is that less than 10,000 pass-through and give you guys more information about that. So, the board has developed a strategic plan. So we have a 2023 to 2026 strategic plan that was adopted June 5th of 2025. And I don't think I provided the strategic plan, but I just wanted to highlight a few things that are identified in the plan that's related to Burn Skip and the gun violence prevention project. So in the strategic plan related to the 60% share, that goal, the board approved the goal of to prioritize Burn Skip funds to initiate and support gun violence intervention and suicide prevention programs. Okay, so that's in the strategic plan. And the goal is up here on the screen if you don't have the strategic plan in your documents. But so the first goal there that's in the strategic plan is the state 60% share goal 3. And then gun violence also comes up in the less than 10,000 pass-through goal, which is goal 1. And it says prioritize Burn Skip funds for treatment court acceptance and addressing violent offenders while helping to mitigate gun violence programs. So those have already been approved by the board in your strategic plan on this funding. One, the goal 3 related to the state 60% share, and then the goal 1 related to the less than 10,000 pot of money. So you have the 60% share pot, the pass through, and then the less than 10,000 pot of money. Questions about that? Okay. So I wanted to look at what Burn Skip is, what our strategic plan is as a board that's been approved. And then I came up with the recommendations that we have, or my recommendation to the board is how we take these action items. So the first action item, my recommendation is that we need to decide whether or not we're going to use federal funds to complete a gun violence prevention project. That's decision 1. And then the next thing would be hearing from Scott on the Anti-Drug Committee report. And then vote 2 would be if we're going to use, or if we're going to adopt the Anti-Drug Committee's recommendation to use, to fully fund all applications and then use the remaining funds as a gun violence prevention project. So that would be vote 2. And then the third vote would be, we're going to have a discussion on the less than 10,000 pot of money and decide if the board wants to, what the board wants to do related to that monies as it relates to a gun violence prevention project. I don't know if in the past you've talked much about the less than 10,000 money, but because time is of the essence, I know Scott has data that is important to the campaign if the board were to move forward on it. I think now is the time to have the conversation before March. So we would want to decide how the board wants to move forward on those monies. So that's kind of the plan. Questions about it? Comments?
Any questions from the board? Scott, you have any questions on that? You're kind of heading it up.
No, I do not. I agree with the layout of what Kayla just said, that I will give the anti-drug committee report and sort of the recommended option that came out of our meeting of that committee, and how that impacted some of the money that we had set aside for the gun violence prevention project. But this is another way to make more funds available.
So, so again, just overview. So we have the state 60% share. We have a little over $52,000 that we could repurpose for this. We have the burn skip less than 10,000 funds. We have FY23 money and FY24 within that pot. So all three pots of money, you've got a little over 160. Okay. And then just take in consideration what you've already adopted within your strategic plan, those goal 1 and 3, as you move forward with discussion. Next slide. So what I want to do is I have a couple. If the board's not interested, I can move on. I don't have to show all of them, but for purposes to aid your discussion, I wanted to give you just the material. That way, you know, we don't have to decide on a message, but it's just to help you in your discussion about the topic on how we want to move forward. So I want to show you what's out there. It helps me understand what other state administering agencies are doing. That way, you know, basically you're not alone. We know that other states are using burn skip money for gun violence prevention programs. It is very, it's just every state's very different. Some are going toward data avenues, some are doing campaigns, some are, there's one state that made a complete gun violence prevention office. Funds are being used in many different ways, but what the discussion with the board has been, it's what other states also have been doing. So I just want to let you know that you're not alone in the conversation. So I want to give you some examples of what I found. And then again, it's not telling you how to message this if it's approved. It's just giving you more information for your discussion to make a decision. So one thing that I found is related to Brady. So Brady on burn funding. They came up with a campaign and it's called End Family Fire. The interesting thing about this Brady organization, this nonprofit, is that they target states, they targeted California and Pennsylvania to develop documents for the public to submit to boards like this board to say, use burn skip funding for gun violence prevention campaigns. So they came up with email formats, email templates, letter templates for 2 states to have the public advocate to use burn skip funding for this purpose. I thought that was interesting. They also had some webinars on with the federal USDOJ burn skip federal grant managers, where they talked about burn skip funding and how it's used and the purpose of it. But so their main objective has been advocating for state advisory boards like yourself to use funds for this purpose. Next. Here's an example.
Give us a moment to make sure this goes off.
Okay. And so this is the
Give us a moment. Make sure you.
What? Perhaps just share it in the chat. Share the link in the chat.
Can you mute your machine?
The-
This one right now. Go ahead. Mr. Chair, would you? Oh, you need to turn off your microphone in the Zoom meeting. In here, controls right up there at the top, audio. Right there. There we go.
I tried it. It didn't seem to work.
Mr. Chair, you're speaking over Zoom.
Yeah, we're going to take a 5-minute break here for audio reasons here. So. Okay, we'll go ahead and continue then with the Burn State Crisis Prevention, the Gun Violence Project. Is there any more discussion that we want to have on that? I guess we have a motion whether we're going to follow through with it or not.
We have. Chair.
Oh, yeah, some more. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I don't know, did you send them the link? Wait, okay. Can we play this one? And are they hearing it on Zoom?
I'm a different kind of threat. I can't be scared away or negotiated with. You can't call the cops on me.
Do you still want to hang out after?
I don't want your money or your TV. I don't even have to break in. I'm invited.
So that's in family fire.
So that's in Family Fire. That's through the Brady Group who campaigns that Burns Get Money is used for this purpose. They did this with Missouri as an End Family Fire campaign. The next one, Anna Bo.
My name is Teresa Barber. I was in the United States Navy and I served overseas in the Middle East and Africa. Early on in my career, I had a commander that taught our suicide prevention training on a Friday afternoon, and the very next day he took his own life. 90% of suicide attempts involving a gun are fatal. You don't know how much somebody can hide what's going on inside their head. Store your guns securely. Help stop suicide.
Very good. Okay. Next slide. So that's just another example of the End Family Fire. So the other thing that I looked at is, here's some stats from them. They had from their campaign, this is the impact that they listed. 140% gun owners who saw the ads were more likely to express concern that a gun in the home increases the risk of a tragedy. Gun owners who saw the ads were 310% more likely to seek information on safe storage. And then the last one there. Next slide. part of their messaging is the does and doesn't do. You can see there, it doesn't politicize the issue, question the right to own, demonize gun owners, or create us versus them. And then the do on the left side there, in partnership with the Ad Council. Next. So that's one example with Brady. The other thing that I did was looked at the National Criminal Justice Association. They are a technical provider for us. We can seek help from them as a state administering agency. They do a lot of TA with Burn Skip. And they looked at subawards, I think it was from 22 and 23 here. And I pulled out just some nuggets of information. They looked at a variety of different subawards from states, but here's some common things I found. So statewide campaigns that Burn Skip monies were used for, campaigns promoting safe firearm storage practices, a lot of education. As you guys are aware, safe storage, there's also a lot of ads and campaigns related around mental health, veterans, youth, suicide prevention materials. It all kind of goes in together, domestic violence incidents as well. But they supported a program called Welcome and Resources Notification to deter people from committing gun crimes. And then again, undertaking community outreach and education programs. And then they also partnered with local firearm retailers as well. So this is just kind of a summary of what they've identified from states as to how some ways that they're applying these funds. These are just the ones somewhat related to the media campaigns. There's obviously a whole list of ways that states are doing this, but that's not media related or education. NCJA in some of their materials refer to this organization called Everytown for Gun Safety. And Everytown for Gun Safety has a lot of data on gun laws. They do a report card. So basically, Montana has their report card, and all other states do, related to legislation around gun safety and gun laws. But NCJA references Everytown. And so I wanted to, because we trust NCJA as a technical provider, I looked into Everytown, and this is the campaign they use, which is SMART. And you can read here what SMART is. It's a Be Smart campaign, but I do have a video as to the Be Smart campaign to show you. And it does, it relates to the conversation the board had in September related to gun theft in vehicles. And I thought it was relevant to the conversation.
No.
911, what's your emergency?
My car got broken into and my gun was in there. Your gun? You left your gun in the glove box? I know. With my hospital shifts, I'm coming and going at all times. I need that gun for protection. I hear that. Are you okay? I can't stop thinking about what's gonna happen to that gun. Tracy's son, he was killed by a stolen gun. Hey, that's not gonna happen. Be real. Stolen guns can still be used in crimes. Well, there's nothing you can do about it now, so I just didn't think this would happen. Does Willie leave his gun in the car? Not usually, but when he does, he put it in the box. A box? Yeah, a lock box under the passenger seat. I'll have to look into that. I gotta be smart about this. Hand me another strip. I don't know how you do that with those long nails of yours. Girl, don't be mad at me because your nails are busted. Don't start with me.
Securing firearms, I think, is the most important thing you could do.
That's not putting it in the closet, in the shoebox, not hiding it under the pillow or the mattress. It's in a safe, secure area, inaccessible to children.
Locked and unloaded.
Most guns used in school shootings come from the home.
It's the parent's responsibility to make sure that gun is secured.
I store my guns responsibly, but I ask my neighbors and my friends to do the same thing. Securing firearms, I think, is the
So, talking about Brady as it. We talked about Brady as an example, references to NCJA, some resources they have. The other conversation the board's had is related to Arizona. They looking at Arizona and working with Griselda and Aaron to pull this information together. They spent over $600K over 3 years related to their campaign. It was a statewide awareness, multi-platform campaign on a campaign called Gun Safety Saves Lives. So kind of like the Be Smart campaign and the other campaign we looked at, but theirs was titled Gun Safety Saves Lives. That was the branding. The mission you can see here is to create safer communities and save lives by raising awareness about the importance of gun safety. And they came up with a few different videos related to that gun safety saves lives branding, which is see something, say something. It's a kid with a gun in his backpack at school. It's a parents. They came up with a parents with children's safety. It's targeting a mother who, or it's targeting parents with children and gun that are gun owners. So it's a mother talking about her experience. There's one targeting hunters and gun owners, a gun owner safe storage, and then there's a veteran suicide targeting military veterans. I do have, I think, 1 or 2 examples to show you related to the Gun Safety Saves Lives brand, because that's one that you guys were talking about.
Sure, I carry. It's my Arizona right. But I'm smart about it. I know there's a responsibility that comes with it. There are places my gun shouldn't go. I remove it, lock it up. Now it's safe and secure. Because gun safety starts with me.
Gun safety saves lives. To learn more, go to gunsafetysaveslives.com for resources and support.
Sure.
All right, the last one I did some research on is
Violence prevention programs in Montana, but the one that I was reading about was Safer Communities here in Lewis and Clark. They have a lot of different partners involved in this program. I think it's a grant funded by the CDC, but I talked to the coordinator this week. The program is going strong. They've expanded, and they have a lethal means toolkit. There's a video that I like to share. It's called The Conversation. It gives you an example. It'll be the last example I have for you guys, but they also have a Lock It Up. I think I have maybe 2 videos, a Lock It Up youth video, and then they have some other samples. And I'll also show you some resource cards that show you a little bit more about what Safer Communities is. It's related to not only gun safety, but also prescriptions. And I think there's another thing they focus on as well. But their whole thing is related to having the community partners and support to create these materials. So it's really team coming up with these resources and getting in local firearm dealers to be part of that conversation as well. So I'll show you an example here.
I can't count the number of conversations we've shared, talking about families, sports, even just the weather. But this conversation, I knew this conversation was going to be hard. I had noticed Terry wasn't acting like himself. He was irritable. Something was off. So I just asked him if he had been feeling down. Terry wasn't doing well, and he knew it. And then I asked him something very important. I asked him if he had thought about suicide. I asked him if he wanted me to look after his guns for a little while. He agreed. I can't count the number of conversations we've shared, but I'll never forget this one. I can't. Count the number.
I know I can be a little dramatic.
Oh my God! I can get a little mad sometimes.
The fact is, we're teenagers.
Look at this, Grant.
He's just a friend.
I haven't seen you in a month. No, get it. Sorry, this is over.
This breakup, it was terrible for me.
What? I didn't know how to fit in.
I even thought
It might be easier if I just ended.
Even though I'm young, I know what suicide is.
And most suicide is done with firearms. And mostly, they're from inside our own homes.
but you locked your firearms.
You locked your firearms.
Seems like such a small thing, but it could save a life.
You saved my life.
My life.
My life.
You saved my life.
And then this is just some of the materials that they distribute through Safer Communities that you can see here. Okay. So I put this motion on there just because it allows me to keep track as the conversation goes on, that we always have a base to go back to as to what we were talking about, because we just had motions and motions within motions. So this isn't, the intent of this isn't to be a motion. It's just for us to refer back to when we, if there's robust discussion. So that's all I have related to the burn skip information related to the gun violence prevention project. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to look at this. And I haven't been part of the previous conversation, so I wanted to do some research to aid the conversation for you and support you guys in the conversation on how you want to move forward. Mr. Chair?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate it. That was pretty good information that you had for us. As far as this first motion, though, didn't we do that at one of the last quarterly meeting, recommend that we move forward with trying to use federal funds for our program? You know, was you there? We didn't, huh? Okay, so I guess I'll entertain a motion, whether you guys want to move forward with this first motion, just to move forward. Then we'll go into a report by Scott on the funds and how we're going to use them if we decide that we're going to do it. If we decide that we're going to use federal funds for this, then we'll move on to the second presentation. So what's the wishes of the committee?
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Vice Chair?
Yes. Is that Lori?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yes, Lori.
On this first vote of whether or not we're going to use the funds, for clarification, do we mean use the funds for a promotional project? Or use them at all?
Mr. Chair, Lori, It is my understanding the board has been considering whether or not to do a gun violence prevention media campaign or a media project. So yes, it would be whether or not what the board wants to, yes or no, to a gun violence prevention campaign project.
Right. So, and if we did not use it for that, is there another option for use, or the only option for use is the prevention project?
We would still have to find, they would still have to prove from DOJ even if we pass this motion, correct?
Mr. Chair, Lori, yes. So if the board approved the gun violence prevention media campaign project, we would still have to submit for approval through US DOJ. And then if there are other suggestions or recommendations from the board as to how to use unallocated funds, we could consider those as long as they fit within the purpose areas of the burn skip funding.
Thank you.
Okay, yep.
Mr. Chair, Caleb, do we money, how much is it, like 160, 106?
Yeah, 160 total if we used all pots of money.
And that's not, we're not taking money away from any other programs.
So correct. And this would get into the second and third action item. That idea with this would just be to determine whether or not the board wants to move forward with the campaign or not. Because
yeah. Sort of like, I want to know where that money's coming from before I vote to say we're going to use them. Does that make sense?
It does. My only comment with that is when Scott talks about the anti-drug committee report, their recommendation is to use unallocated funds for this purpose. And so to me, it makes, however the board wants to make these decisions, but to me, to have that recommendation from the anti-drug committee, we need to know whether or not we're going to move forward with it.
So I'll move to approve so we can hear the other stuff.
Okay, we got a motion by Brian to move forward with the possible use of federal funds for a gun prevention media campaign. Do we have a second?
This is Laurie. I'll make the second.
Okay, Lori, we got a second by Lori. Any more discussion on that? Does everybody understand exactly what the motion is? It's just whether we're going to move forward with this or not. Okay, hearing that, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. None opposed, motion carried. Okay, the second motion then would be, we want to have Scott make his presentation on the drug committee. Okay, Scott, if you're ready, we're ready for you.
I am. Chair Kern, thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
All right, thank you. Just want to give you guys an update that the anti-drug committee met on October 23rd, 2025. Chair Kern, myself, board members Myers and Bethel were present. We were provided several options for how to use fiscal year 2024 burn skip funds. We reviewed all three options, had a fairly robust discussion about all the three options, and we are taking to the full board consideration option 3. I think it was recommended unanimously by the anti-drug committee members that were present. Basically, I'll just sort of detail what each of the options were. Option 1 was to fully fund each of the grant applicants based on their budget proposal. Option 2 was to fund one of the proposals at 81% and then use the 85,000 not passed to fund the gun safety campaign. And if you recall from previous meetings, we had set aside $85,000 at the beginning of the year. And so there was that option. And then there was option 3, which was to fully fund every submitted budget proposal, which would allow for a remainder of $52,312 in funds. And we wanted to earmark that for the gun safety campaign. So a little bit less than we sort of had discussed or earmarked previously, but we wanted to make sure to fully fund all of the budget proposals that were presented to the Anti-Drug Committee. So we are recommending option 3, which is all of the submitted budget proposals will be funded as requested. The total amount that we had available to us was $452,848 to award as the share. So if everything is fully funded, this is how we got to that 52,000 number. $400,535.59 will be passed to the subgrantees, and then the remainder, which Executive Director Bragg showed on a previous slide during her presentation, the remaining $52,312.41 could be reserved to use for the gun safety campaign. And now that we want to continue to move down the idea of a gun safety campaign, that is our recommendation. So, Chair, that's was the work of the Anti-Drug Committee, and we need board action on approving option 3 as recommended by the Anti-Drug Committee.
Okay, you heard the request, and option 3 was what the Anti-Drug Committee would prefer, and that would be to fully fund all the programs or projects that we had there, with the remaining $52,000 to go towards this gun safety campaign. So that is the motion. We have a motion, and it was seconded at the committee. So do we have a motion for Scott's motion? So none of the programs, I believe during that committee meeting, all the committees that were funded were going to be fully funded, and that was what the remaining was to use for that.
And Chair, there is a document within your board book that is a list of the proposed subawards under the 60% state share, the applicant name, the project name, and the award amount, along with a summary of what that project would be.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would make that motion to adopt option 3.
Okay, we got a motion by Katie to adopt option 3 from the recommendation of the Anti-Drug Committee. Do we have a second?
This is
Okay,
Amanda
second by Brian.
Littleton. Second. Oh.
Oh, yeah, I've got a second by Brian. Any discussions on it?
And to be clear, that's just for the burn skip recommendations under the 60% state share. That's what we're talking about right now.
Okay.
It's an informational question. So otherwise, what would happen? Would this money carry forward, or would it revert to the federal government, or what would happen with non-action?
The 52,000?
Yeah.
It would be just carried over, I believe, right?
So my only question is if we eventually get to it, the 180 or 160, is that enough, or would we want to wait a year to have a meeting? I just don't know about the scales of money to.
Mr. Chair, and this question goes to Ms. Bragg. Eventually, it does revert. Like, we can carry it over, but eventually it's going to revert, right?
Yeah, correct.
We're at fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24.
And Chair Katie, and these funds are related to fiscal year 24.
Okay.
And if I may, Griselda or Aaron, do you have anything to add or clarify?
So you're approving the 6 applicants that are up there, and they are the 60% and the local direct. So the money that would be left over, if it wasn't used for that, we don't know what the costs are. We could reopen an opportunity to try to fund those out to an organization. There's multiple things that we can do. If we don't use them in each of the categories that the funding is specified for, then at that point, if we're not given an extension, then we would have to refund to the federal government.
Okay, so they were all fully funded, so it wouldn't be a matter of giving that to them. So it'd be finding something else for that remainder of funds to do. Okay, everybody understand that? Is there any other discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I'll be abstaining from this vote since I'm involved in it.
On the anti-drug? Okay. Okay, if there's no other discussion on it, then all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Unopposed, one abstaining. Rob? Motion carried. Well, thank you, Scott.
I have very difficult shoes to fill when you can't do the anti-drug committee report.
Is there anything else then for the state burns that completes that?
We just have the last with the less than
10,000 jurisdiction. Okay, Scott, you want to finish that off?
So, Mr. Chair, I have some information to share, and then if the chair would like to open it up for discussion. So, with the 24 burn skip monies, you have in your packet, let me see where that was. You have the timeline of that opportunity when it was released. It's in the it's on the page that says Burn State Crisis Intervention Program overview of the local direct less than 10,000 share. So the opportunity that went out was opened in August. It closed in September, roughly in the September. We did not receive any applications for the pot of money that's the less than 10,000 direct share, or for specialized court, excuse me. So looking at this a little bit closer to understand what the less than 10,000 jurisdiction is, it's basic, and you have the list of it. It's basically the agencies or the jurisdictions that don't meet the requirements of the formula grant of burn skip because of their size. And so they go into this less than 10,000 jurisdiction list that's put together by US DOJ Bureau of Justice Assistance. And so you have that list. I think it's 88 total agencies there. So the BJA gives us options as to how we can utilize those funds. We have been putting it out toward specialized courts. I believe, Katie, your area has been part of that. But there's also other options as well. And I wanted to bring this to the board's attention because, again, like I said, time is of the essence. I know that we've been having this conversation, and before we move on with reposting it as an opportunity, maybe we want to do outreach to treatment courts and then repost this as an opportunity. That's certainly an option. But I wanted to put it before the board because there are other options that you have. So in your discussion, I wanted to make sure that you're aware of all the different options we have with this pot. So the BJA says you can fund one less than 10,000 jurisdiction. We have 88, right? We can fund multiple less than 10,000 jurisdictions. We can fund the state specialty courts. You can do a combination, and you can request a waiver. And that waiver is basically that the state NBCC would use the funds for a project that would benefit these local less than 10,000 jurisdictions that BJA, USDOJ, BJA has identified. So there are questions we have that we would want to seek federal guidance from the federal manager, but that may take some time. And again, because time is of the essence to get this thing on the road. If we were going to do now that we're going to do a campaign, I wanted to bring it before the board now. So we may not have all of the answers to your questions, but what I can tell you is that we can request a waiver. What that waiver requires, instead of us putting this out as an opportunity for state specialty courts to apply, we would ask the US DOJ Bureau of Justice Assistance to allow us to utilize these funds for a project. We would describe that project as the Gun Violence Prevention Campaign Project. And there's some other hoops we got to jump through. One of those being that we've got to identify what units of government within this list are going to benefit from our project. I think that's fairly easy, right? But then the other thing that we just don't know, and I have a concern about, is the number 2 of this waiver is benefiting unit or units of local government. So these entities listed, they've got to voluntarily certify in writing that the amount specified, because you can see here they're assigned an amount of money. So the amount specified will directly benefit them, and funding the project at the state level is in the best interest of that unit. What I don't know, and what I can't advise the board today, and what we'd have to ask the Bureau of Justice Assistance, is if we decided to put 100 or the $108,000, which is in this pot of money. So there's 108,217 total for this less than 10,000 pot. If we were to request a waiver, what I don't know is if we have to get a voluntary certification from every single unit. So each entity on this list, 88 entities, or if what they explain in their rules, in their frequently asked questions through Bureau of Justice Assistance, if we can identify a select number and submit that to them. I don't know. So we'd have to figure that out. If they come back and say, you can't repurpose these funds through a waiver unless you have 88 different certifications, that's really difficult for us to do. We can't do that. But if they only require a select few, then I think that's something we could do. We could partner with MSPOA potentially and have them help us reach out, or we could reach out on our own and have that conversation. But just work with our partners to do that. And then ultimately it does have to be approved by the federal government either way. So I wanted to dig down in that waiver. You still have other options, right? You still have those other options which are in your book, which are 1 through 6. You can do any combination of them. But it's that pot of money that's $108,000. One recommendation is we just maybe do additional outreach, and we can put out an opportunity and see if treatment courts apply. Or if we wanted to try to utilize that $108,000 for a campaign, then we could go that route too. It's just additional monies to support the campaign. Chair Andrea, yes. So the opportunity opened August 14th. We had an offers call, Aaron and Griselda, on August 21st. It closed. The question and answer period closed on September 18th, and then on September 25th, the opportunity closed. We did not get any applicants for the less than 10,000 specialized court share of money. That's $108,000 in total.
Mr. Chair, if I could just, maybe I'll just help a little bit. So when these originally came out, the burn skip, and I think it was fiscal year 23 is what we were working in. I'm looking over at Aaron to make sure I've got that right. There was only 2 courts that applied: my court, my treatment court, and Judge Best's treatment court. And at that time, we did not think, at least I'm talking about my court, we didn't think we would get a BJA grant extension. We ended up getting a BJA grant extension. So now we're having to extend out the burden skip money to get it all spent. And so at least on my end, when you're the district court judge for a small district, you end up doing all the jack of all trades. So I actually write all the grants for my treatment court, which is fun. And so it was a strategic decision on our end, at least for the 12th Judicial District Treatment Court, to not apply for this, because we already have BJ funding that sunsetted at the end of September this year that we weren't expecting to get an extension on. And now we have burn skip money that we still need to spend down as well. And so it's like, well, it seems kind of silly to apply for a grant that I'm not sure if we can spend. On our end, I didn't think it was worth the time and the resources on the fiscal end to apply for something that, because of the way things have come out. And so prior to us going back on the recording, I was asking Kayla, do we know if BurnSkip is going to have a fiscal year 25? The answer is, and I'll let you answer this part because I didn't know the answer. The answer was we just don't know because we haven't had any fiscal year 25 information provided as of yet.
Yeah, I mean, we anticipate that they'll release a FY25 BurnSkip opportunity, but it just hasn't come down yet.
And so at least on my end, and I'm going to abstain from voting on this one, but at least on my end, it would be my anticipation that the 12th Judicial District Treatment Court would apply for the fiscal year 25 and just use up what we still have left of the 23 to finish out. That would be what we'd be doing. I don't know what Judge Best is up to, but if that helps give people context of why at least at least one of the two applicants didn't apply for the money.
This is Amanda Littleson, Mr. Chair. I think that it would be great to use that funding for the prevention project, just because they did put out and try to get applicants for that. And if the applicants if nobody applied for it, then I think that the efforts would be best used to put it towards prevention. It's not like they didn't try to get applicants, so that's just my opinion. I would like to put it towards something else.
This is Amanda Myers. So I just wanted folks to know a little bit of context for our interests. So there are a number of tribal treatment courts that have recently lost funding through the federal system. It just expired. And they were not as aware of the Board of Crime Control's ability to also offer this type of funding. So the folks that I have talked to would be interested in applying. They didn't really, I think, focus on it as much when this was initially announced, and they have expressed an interest, to me at least, in wanting to apply to that. I don't know what that kind of portion of funding would be. So, I mean, I think I'd be open to the board to the extent they want to, divvy up funding, some going toward the campaign and some going toward the less than 10,000 jurisdictions. But I would say, at least on my end, I know there are tribal partners with treatment courts that would like to apply for this funding if it's reannounced. So I would support it being reannounced.
Sure. A question. I guess I'm confused about the list of 81 or whatnot. Like, where does it come from, and where does that number come from? Was that something they applied for, or is that something that's calculated? And I don't see any tribal courts on there at all, at least, or I'm missing them.
Chair, Mr. Mercer, this list we have no control over. So this is all based off the USDOJ BJA formula for this pot of money. So this is something they calculate and say, due to your size, this is the category you fit within. It's all based off their formulas.
So if Dillon City Court applied, they could only get a 1,000, the top line.
So they're not eligible for a direct BurnSkip grant or JAG grant.
So the number doesn't really mean much then, on the right? As long as it's less than 10,000, it's not like any sort of other limit.
Less than 10,000, I don't think has anything to do with how, that's just the category of as to what they say these jurisdictions are. If based off their size and their formula, they go into this category with USDOJ, BJA. Aaron, do you have anything to add to that?
It is tied into It's tied into JAG. So the JAG grant, Justice Assistance Grant, which we use in Montana to fund drug task forces. There is a formula that the Bureau of Justice Assistance has based on your population, your crime data. It all gets funneled into a formula to determine if you are eligible for a direct JAG grant or not. So there are places in Montana that can apply for direct JAG grants. The rest of them
are on this less than 10,000. The first gift less than 10,000 is based on the JEG less than 10,000 list. So it's just saying that these jurisdictions, based on their population and their crime data, would not qualify for a direct JEG grant. Therefore, since burn skip is tied to JEG, they don't qualify for a direct burn skip grant unless they concept. It's hard to explain, but that's just kind of based on the justice system.
So the follow-up, so if there are no tribal courts on this list, does that mean something? Are they ineligible or is it?
I can answer that, Amanda Littleson. So most of the tribes, they are their own sovereign nation, so they apply for the same funding as the state of Montana. So it's been a struggle getting them to apply for the state grants under the state, because they can actually apply for the federal grants and get funding through that as well. So they may already be participating in this funding through the same status as the state of Montana. So it's not necessarily that they're not getting the funding, it's just that it's on the same level as the state.
And Amanda could correct me if I'm wrong. I think, so my understanding is they could potentially qualify under the less than 10,000 because they are located in the counties that are less than 10,000. And so, again, I am no grant expert, but and part of the reason this is coming up is they typically go through like the direct, like Amanda is referencing, like the state, they go directly through DOJ. They typically don't pay as much attention on the board of like the state's authorizations. But in this particular circumstance, given kind of the unpredictability of the federal grant system and, with the shutdown and everything, I've heard them express an interest in attempting to get funding in this route, in addition or in lieu of the direct, because they do have a gap essentially where they cannot get current funding and they can only look forward to sort of future years. But I say that all with, that's anecdotal when speaking to them. I am certainly no grant expert, but it appears that they would be allowed to seek the funding, and they've expressed an interest to the extent they can. Again, that would be, I think, for folks that are a lot smarter than me as to how that all works out. But I just wanted to express that interest in the conversations that I had had with them.
And Amanda, I would just to comment, if that, so knowing based off what you just shared, if NBCC, the board, chose to have us release the opportunity again, and the $108,000 would be up to award by a committee and then ultimately the board, that would be an option for the board to consider for the people that you've talked to that are treatment court interested in applying for their treatment courts.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not sure of the amounts that they would be seeking, so I don't know if the full 108 would necessarily be required for those that apply. They just sort of generally spoke about their interest, but I don't know operation costs with their drug courts, kind of what those amounts are.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Yes.
So for clarification, if we did release it, advertise it again, what is the timeline on that?
Chair Lori, I'm going to refer to Griselda and Aaron. Do you guys want to talk about the timeline for burn skip?
So the less than 10,000 jurisdiction pot of money is actually a combination of 23 and 24 funds. So 23 funds expire 9/30/26.
I'm sorry, I'm not able to hear anything that's being said.
Where do I need to go? I'll put it on. Okay.
The pot of money under the less than 10,000 jurisdictions that we're talking about is a combination of 23 and 24 funds. And 23 funds expire September 30th of 26 unless we request an extension on that money. 24 funds would have expired 9/30 of 27, but we've actually already requested an extension on that funding in order to fund the projects that you guys voted on today. So the 24 funding is already extended through 2028. So
that if we put it back out, what would the application deadline be?
We typically put them out for 6 weeks. It would take us a little bit of time to put together the funding opportunity because it would be specific to the court programs under that. But I would say we could have it out, open, closed, scored, and awarded possibly by the June meeting. That would be my
thank you
suggestion.
So just to clarify, so with the 9/30 deadline of 2026, is that for like use of those funds? Because I'm just wondering, is it actually feasible if we're using the 23 funds that anybody that would actually get awarded it be able to spend it? Or would it make more sense to have the 23 funds allocated toward the gun prevention program and then focus on announcing for the 24, which we know will have enough time to be utilized?
We can request an extension on 23 funds if we feel that that's necessary. But otherwise, if we don't request an extension, it does have to be utilized by September 30th of 26. So if we didn't award funds until June, that would be a pretty quick turnaround for those projects.
Yeah, I mean, just knowing the courts that would be utilized, like there's no way they could possibly utilize that in 3 months. And so I'm just, I defer to board members what they're interested in. But like, unless we got an extension, it would make sense to me that you'd divert the 23 funds to the prevention program so they can be utilized before they expire. And then we'd still have the 24 funds available for whoever may apply to those if they got reannounced.
And Chair, for clarification, so the fiscal year 23, you have $23,523. And then for the fiscal year 24, there's $84,694.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
It seems to me like the horse has sort of left the barn on what we're going to do with this money this year, and I agree with that. I think this is a great conversation about what we want to do in the future and how we solicit more involvement or applications for the leftover funds. And I think sort of in a tiered system approach from my perspective, it'd be great. Let's spend the money on what we're going to spend it on this year because we'll get good utilization. We'll seed that program moving forward. In subsequent years, option 2, in a way that we can encourage more applications, should be our priority, including the tribal entities if they're eligible. And then after that, option 3, if we can find a way that says apply for the less than 10 and you don't, let's find a way to get to the state courts that provide the money in an easy shot, because I think administratively that makes more sense. But we're sort of talking about what we're going to do in a 3-year period when I think we know where the money's going to be spent this year. So I suggest that we just move forward.
What can I ask, what is this waiver? What would that do as far as getting a waiver for it? Is that just a time waiver or?
Chair, so the waiver is if the board wanted us to utilize the $108,000, which is the less than $10,000 pot of money, which is the $108,000 combined of federal fiscal year 23 and federal fiscal year 24 monies, we would ask to utilize the total amount for the project, the gun violence prevention project. We would submit that along with the documentation to USDOJ BJA for approval to say the state wants to do this project. Here's the support for that project. We've met these requirements. The question that we have, one, we have to get approval from BJA, but 2, are they going to require for the waiver every 88 entities on this list to provide us a certification saying they want us to use their provided monies within the formula grant on the right hand side for this project and that it benefits them? Or is it 1 or 2 units that can submit certification and that meets the requirements? That's something we don't know, and that we'll have to ask the federal grant manager. Again, if to approve the waiver if we have to have a certification, voluntary in writing, that these agencies agree that we use this money in this way.
That's what the amount on the far column is.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, what's the wishes of the committee
Mr. Vice
or the
Chair.
board? Yes, Lori.
I can't remember who was talking just before you, but he said, I think we should just move forward. Can you clarify, move forward to what?
Mr. Chair, this is Eric. Sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, thank you,
I'd ask
Eric.
myself. Yeah, spend the 23-24 money on the gun violence prevention program and look at
Instead
ways
of
to
putting
address.
it back out there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Instead of putting it
Got
back
it.
out there.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify what you were informally recommending.
Okay.
You're making that motion.
Thank you. Scott.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion. I would move that we instruct the staff of the Board of Crime Control to request a waiver of the 23-24 funds, the $108,000 of the DOJ BJA, to see if it's even viable that we can use that for a gun safety campaign. Second, if we can, but they have to contact all 88 of the eligible folks, then that would authorize the executive director to readdress the issue with the board, because I believe I heard that was untenable. So that would be my motion, that we move to explore or request the waiver, and that if the waiver requires the contact of the 88 entities, which I heard was untenable, then the staff would bring it back to the board for reconsideration.
Okay, you heard the motion. Does everybody understand the motion? Do we have a second? Okay, second by, excuse me, Andrea. Yeah, excuse me. Is there any other discussion on it?
Mr. Vice Chair.
Yes.
I'm just still trying. I want to make sure, because there's so many things we're talking about, that I haven't confused myself. I understand the motion was just made. That makes sense to me. How does that compare to what Eric was just saying?
It's exactly on.
That's the exact same thing. It's just using the formal words, right?
It's just that Dwight was smarter than me and did it formally. Yeah.
Got it. Understood. Yeah. Okay. I was just making sure that was the case, Eric, before I moved in with some support here.
Thank you for the moral support.
I'm here.
No argument from Scott?
Thanks, everybody.
All right, if there's no more discussion, then we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carried.
Katie Snipes Ruby's abstaining.
Any abstentions?
That's me.
Oh, okay. We have one.
Motion that Scott was smarter than Eric.
Yeah. We have one, all four and one abstention. Katie? Okay, motion carried. Got that? All right. Let's see then, that pretty much wraps up the Burns State Crisis Intervention Program then. Next thing is lunch. Where are we at there?
Mr. Chair, could we keep going until lunch arrives?
I can, yeah.
Okay,
Sorry
yes, we
to-
can. We can move forward in the agenda and go for the federal update from Kayla.
Yeah, okay. So just a few things that I wanted to share with the board. We have applied for the FY25 funds that you see on the board, the opportunities there. We accepted the award and the special conditions for those 25 opportunities. We applied for the 25 Paul Coverdale Forensic Science Improvement Grant right before the federal shutdown. And during the shutdown, we were able to maintain business as usual because of the federal payment systems were still open. So we could still do drawdowns to reimburse on payment requests to subgrantees. That was good. Staff were prepared. We were really proud of their response and communicating to subgrantees. And during the shutdown, I would have meetings with the National Criminal Justice Association and their government rep, and they shared that USDOJ Office of Justice Programs, they're looking at a consolidation plan. It was identified within the big beautiful bill, and then also in some of the presidential budgets, but moving the Office Against Violence Against Women under the umbrella of USDOJ Bureau of Justice Assistance. You're probably aware, Hannah, can you go to the next slide? You're probably aware that OVW is its own standalone office. And so the consolidation efforts would be to move OVW under the umbrella of OJP. That has come with some concerns from different nonprofits and groups and some representatives. There's some letters out there to the Senate, various things related to the consolidation of offices. It's not only OVW, it's also the COPS office and the Office of Tribal Justice. So COPS office, Office of Tribal Justice, and the Office on Violence Against Women to consolidate under OJP. The memo that's come out from USDOJ that NCJA shared with us is that it's to eliminate duplicative positions, infrastructure, and programs. Their goal in the memo about this consolidation effort is to improve services for the field, reduce grantee burden, create efficiencies, and provide better opportunities to align funding and programs. So I wanted you to know that there's this consolidation effort, and that part of that effort is reorganizing some things that regarding grant administration. So organizational structure potential, and then also the idea of consolidating notice of funding opportunities into one NOFO. So something else they're floating is as part of the consolidation is to have potential one NOFO for various opportunities that state administrative agencies can apply for. I don't have any information on it. That's all I know. But that's what's been shared with us. Let's see. Part of that, again, their messaging is to streamline processes such as programmatic monitoring, financial monitoring, risk management, and financial reporting. So as I learn more, I can keep you updated because if they, depending on how they consolidate or if they consolidate, and then depending on how they update their notice of funding opportunities, that will impact our application process as a state administering agency potentially. The National Criminal Justice Association, they have a seat at the table with the stakeholders at their level, at the national level. They've created somewhat of a working group of state administering agencies to learn about what this looks like, good, bad, the ugly. And so we are expected to meet and have that conversation. That way they can go to their people and say, here's what we're hearing from state administering agencies, not only about the consolidation, but also about the NOFO changes, if there are any, and the impacts on what that looks like. And in specific to some of the outreach that NCJA has received, it's specific to law enforcement and gender-based violence groups. They're opposed to the consolidation of COPS office and OVW into the Office of Justice Programs. Katie alluded to it a little bit earlier. We have not received any BJA FY25 funding opportunities. So we're still waiting on those. And we haven't heard anything about FY26 ones as well. So as soon as we know, we'll start our process internally. Chris Eldon and I and the program section we've met, we did some planning on timelines and that. So we're prepared, staff's prepared for whenever grants drop. We've been told they're in the hopper, potentially especially the formula grants. But that's where we're at. Chair.
Yes, Brian.
So, I should probably pay more attention to the federal.
See how you're gonna be there.
Yeah. So the CR after that reinstated the government from the shutdown. Is there a date like that's gonna? I'm sorry if you covered that. That they have to re-up that.
Yeah, it's January 31st, I believe, is the end of the current CR. So they have to either enact funding, which seems unlikely, or extend the CR after that date.
Yeah, that's the date I have as well. And I don't think within the appropriated bills, I think there's 3 of 12. The last I've read, the one that funds most of the work that we do or impacts this work is through, I believe, the Commerce, Justice, and Science, something or another. And I don't think that was part of the CR. So January 30th would be, or January 31st would be our date.
Okay. That's it on the update. Any questions? Any other questions? I don't understand it.
I think you do. Leave us? I think you understand it perfectly well.
I'd like to. Yeah. Boy, change, huh? Okay, that wraps up the federal update. Want to keep moving forward? Oh, lunch is here. Okay, well, let's take 15, 20 minutes in for lunch, huh? Okay. All right. We're going to take 15 or 20 minutes for lunch, then everybody on Zoom. We'll be back in, say, 20 minutes.
No, he's getting kicked out of daycare, so I gotta go get my dog and I'll be back.
Dog? What kind of dog you got?
No, he's fine. Apparently he's got a swollen ear, so somebody bit him or something. They just...
Okay. We'll come back into session then. Next action item, or next item on the agenda is the quarterly board report. Kayla?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so you probably can tell that it's a little bit different than past reports. The layout is different. And so what you have is a report that we can continue to refine, but it lays out the different sections within the agency. So looking at administration, looking at our IT, our fiscal, and our grant programs, and then giving a little bit of a breakdown on kind of the categories that how we categorize within grant programs, and then our statistical analysis center. And that goes along with our org chart. You can see how that's broken down at the back in the appendix. But so there's the layout is a little bit different, and there's an update that the staff provided. They did a really excellent job at updating about their section, working with the section supervisors, working with their staff to get together and give really updates related to the quarter. So a few highlights that I want to talk about is the conference. So we had the October Crime Prevention Conference, the 28th through the 30th in Billings. There's some stats there for you under the administration section of the board report. 153 registered attendees. We had several folks from the board attend and help participate in that. Katie, thank you for leading the AI panel. And then So that's the highlight there. And then one thing that I think is neat about this report is we're trying to look forward. So giving you things that we're looking at into the next quarter. And so some goals that we're working on is looking at developing some new board member onboarding materials, updating the ones that we have, starting to look at the review of our operational internal procedures, getting those reviewed and updated. The assessment of meeting minutes and how that's done and provide it to the public, and updating our tracking of public information requests. As you know, we have the SAC, the Statistical Analysis Center, and we do get quite a few public information requests related to data that they have. And so we are looking at how we can enhance that process internally to track those timelines and responses to those public requests. Information technology, Bo has been working on various projects, but you can see there, read what's going on there. One main thing is that we are transitioning between methods of two-factor authentication. DOJ is switching to Duo, and then that's because we're in this in-between between DOJ and DOA. That's a complicated IT transition. So we're working on that, and it impacts staff and then also our contractors that utilize the Juvenile Detention Database reporting system. For fiscal, Tammy Ferris, the fiscal supervisor, is here, and she'll give you an update on the financial report. But what I wanted to share is looking forward. A few of our goals related to the fiscal section is looking at, and board members have. In our board member one-on-ones, you've shared some comments related to this, but looking at how we are doing financial reports for the board, and looking at whether changing up the format, the information provided. Tammy has some really good ideas about what that's going to look like, and hopefully we'll have that different format for the March meeting. But something that we're working on for the next quarter here is financial reporting for the board and financial reporting for the YJC, what that looks like, what you want to know, and what format to get that to you. So we're going to work on some ideas, and then love to hear your insights as we move forward. For fiscal, we've been preparing for the upcoming notice of funding opportunities, and working on just the closeout for the financial calendar year. Grant programs. Some highlights there. The staff right before the shutdown, we were accepting things in Just Grants. We were approving special conditions. And so just really, really grateful for the staff to be efficient and on board with getting everything we need to do before that government shutdown. They were great. They were prepared. And so we were able to get what we needed done in Just Grants before it shut down, which was great. You can see we've provided the grants that we applied for, that we sent out notices for regarding award packages there under the grant program section. And then there's additional information related to each subsection within grant programs. So that being juvenile justice, public safety, and victim services are three main sections within grant programs, and including the Youth Justice Advisory Council. One highlight I'd say from the grant program section is that the Do the Right Thing initiative is ongoing right now. It's due, submissions are due March 27th, and we'll get those submitted. Jeremy Shields, the juvenile justice specialist, will get those submitted. And so if you don't have the materials, would like the materials, I can send those to you. That way you can share with schools, with principals, folks in your circle, and then share the work, because we'd love to have a good number of submissions for Do the Right Thing. And then moving on, for our victim services section, one of the priorities moving forward is going to be state planning. And so that's going to be a big deal for us. And most of our, or a good number of our federal grants require, per the funding opportunity, for us to do state planning on how we're going to distribute priority areas related to these funds, what that looks like as a board, how we're going to disperse these funds. And so some of them are coming up due in the next year. And so we'll be focusing on creating a plan for a state plan, essentially. So that could involve board involvement as well. And I know you guys are aware of state plans and probably have approved those and reviewed those in the past, but just incorporating board members in that process. There'll be a lot of outreach to stakeholders to create those plans. But again, it's state planning is that document, kind of like that burn skip strategic plan. What's our priority areas for the funding, and what's our plan as a state administering agency for these funds. So what we're going to do is I'm going to sit down with the grant program section supervisor, Griselda, and also her staff, the grant program section on December 12th. It's an all-day planning meeting to talk about what's required of us, what do we need in state plans, what are the rules, what are the requirements, come up with a plan to do a state plan, and we'll kind of go from there on stakeholders we want to reach out to and how to engage the board. And then we'll have more information for the board. For the Statistical Analysis Center, it's really split up into two parts. It's the Criminal Justice Data Warehouse, and then the other part, which you can see on the org chart, is the Crime Data Reporting section. And regarding the Criminal Justice Data Warehouse, really two focus points is working with Central Square to really work on some challenges we've had with their API. We've had a meeting with them to talk through how to collaborate with them to move our objectives, to progress our objectives more efficiently with them. So Janice and her team are doing an excellent job at that. And it's a big project, and we're doing, it's a big task. And so we have to have that really good working relationship with Central Square. And so in the last month or so, we've been really engaging with their leadership team to figure out how we can continue to meet our objectives and how can we scale. One of those ways to scale is regarding an AWS account. And so Janice, who's the director for the SAC, and her team, McKinley, they went to and you guys may be familiar with it, but they went to the Department of Administration SITSD PI planning conference over at Fort Harrison. And it's an interesting process, but you basically do a pitch of your project, and there's questions from a lot of IT folks from DOA about your project. And so our pitch, along with the support of the Chief Data Officer and his team, that's part of this JDW Steering Council, was potentially getting an AWS account for NBCC. That way we can scale this project. I know we talked a little bit about it, Director Gukin, but because we were unsure whether or not we were not sure how that was going to be received, but they have been really helpful, informative. We've got another kind of team put together now that's specific about the AWS and figuring out how this looks and how this would work. If you want more of the technical information, the details, I can get that to you. But the AWS account for us would allow us to do more on scaling the JDW project and to be successful with getting out to more counties. And then the upcoming year, we are required January, March, I think it's May, September, to give an update to CJOC and the Law and Justice Interim Committee about our progress on JDW. So we'll be doing that. The other part of Janice's world in the SAC is the crime data reporting, and the highlight that there is it's even gone up from now, but the 2025 law enforcement employment survey that was started at the end of October, it's over 76% of the agencies have reported. Now it's over 90%. So the crime data reporting team, they're doing an excellent job. That's Jess Hard and Sheila collaborating with law enforcement agencies to get that report in. And then also we went out to Malta and did a training on NIBRS for some agents or for law enforcement there. It was a request, and we're hoping we can do that more. It was well received, and they did a nice job. So you have the report. Again, I hope it was useful, insightful. If you have suggestions on how this should look in the future or comments, please reach out to me. Let me know. I'm open to feedback because I know it's different for you. And then toward the end, you have the strategic goals and objectives, and I put in a rough status of that to give you kind of a check-in of where we're at. And then on the back toward the appendix, there's key accomplishments that the staff have identified, and that's, IT, Bo, we've gone through a completion of hardware replacement for all of our laptops, which was a big thing. We hosted our 25 crime prevention conference in Billings, and also a sub-grantee training, which the fiscal staff and the grant program staff presented at, and there were over 30 attendees for that. And then again, I listed the AWS pitch as an accomplishment because that was a big deal. It was a big thing at SITSD, that Fort Harrison conference, to go to, have different agencies show up, do their pitch, their project, what they're asking. It was almost kind of like a fraternity or sorority recruitment, where you're walking around and you're kind of telling us about yourself and what you want to see happen. And so it was nicely done, and we're working on that. And then at the end there, matters for noting are just things that don't really require board discussion or approval or anything. It's just things that have come up that you may want to be aware of. So just to highlight, Brett Shandelson is no longer on the board, and we just appreciated his dedication and contribution, and along with Jason Johnson and Matt Koontz. I know Brett was really involved with JDW and the startup of that. And so, and then also Ryan, with your service on your timeline, but just appreciate your service on the board. Our very own Lori Barron, with her announcement as being named the Montana Superintendent of the Year for her leadership, and appreciate it, Katie, for hosting at the Crime Prevention Conference. And the other thing I've put in there too is the success here recently with Boyd Andrew Community Services and Amy Tinney with their new house or recovery home that's been opened here, which is a pretty big deal, and wanted to add that in there. Toward the appendix, you have our org chart, and then board member contact information, which I'll update, and the YJC information as well. The very last thing I wanted to bring your attention to is this. It's new, but what you are used to having is a report that's twice a year. That's an update on our strategic goals and objectives. I've kind of shifted it to make it more of an activities log that's an Excel spreadsheet based. That way the staff throughout the year can add to it. And it's not just an update in March and September, so it looks different. If you like it, please let me know. If you want some more clarification from it or like to see something different, again, I know it's new, and so open to feedback on how the board would like to see this information. The goal of it is to help you guys be informed about what activities are being done at the sub-grantee level and the board level that tie into an objective, into a goal. And so you can read that. The staff come up with these, and they've been patient with me as I try new things. And so I really appreciate that. But the goal moving forward is to get more data in these activities. So it's, looking at VOCA or SAS, given you more data as to people served or things that have been accomplished with funding. So that's where those activities would live, and we'll tie it to an objective and a goal is the idea. And so this is an example here. You've got your strategic year of your goal, which is 25 to 26. The goal number that was set by the board in September, the objective number that it ties to, the source, whether it's done by NBCC or a subgrantee, the related grant, and then the activity description that went on. And so there's quite a few of those that have been added. Chair, that's all I have. I would, if there's no comments or questions, refer to Tammy Ferris, the fiscal supervisor, for the financial reporting.
Any comments or questions? I have one question on back in when you were talking about having this training in Malta. Was that just strictly for that agency, or was there others involved in that training?
Thank you, Chair, for the question. So Malta, that agency had reached out to us, and they did invite surrounding areas as well. And so surrounding jurisdictions, I don't know the count or the variety of different law enforcement agencies that showed up, but that entire area was invited to the Malta area.
Because I was just wondering, we were up in that area, and I never heard anything about it either.
I heard about it, but I thought it was canceled.
It was not
Kinda
canceled.
What it was. So maybe the communication aspect from that agency wasn't.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. I think probably should have more outreach and things like that, because there's quite a few small agencies up there that aren't in the loop, and training like that would be really essential and great, so.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any other discussion or questions for the quarterly report? Okay, then we'll move into the financial report. Is that Tammy? Good to have you here, the money woman.
My name is Tammy Ferris, and I'm the financial manager for the Board of Crime Control. And at the back of your report, you will have copies of financial report. It looks the same as we've always done, just so that I could get something for this quarter, and then next quarter will, with Kayla talking to you all one-on-one and finding out what do you really want to know, we will provide a report that gives you more detail, less detail, whatever would be advantage to you guys to know what money's coming in, what money's going out, and where you have, when we have the federal grants going through and you have to, approve the way the money's going out to the different subgrants, that kind of thing. Going through it the way it's been before, as you can see that we start with the general fund and Montana special revenue. So our general fund right now, we were appropriated for this fiscal year, which ends June 30th, $1,472,000 and some change. We have spent at about the right speed. This report gives you July, August, September, and October data. So that's 4 months, and we've spent $552,000. So that's about right on. We also were appropriated $252,122 for this fiscal year for 2 new data warehouse staff. And as soon as they are hired, that will start being spent. We have our juvenile detention center grants, L grants as a pass-through. You've awarded all of that. Also is the FIPSA match, the state match for that. You awarded all of that. We have general fund for the data warehouse software application, and that is being used at the right now. And the judicial data, we keep that separate, but we will be, again, it's awarded. And then of course the $2 million for VOCA that was awarded. So the first grant you see here is the CIT, which is Crisis Intervention Training Program. And it has funding from 3 different sources, and it is spending on track. Their grant will end at the end of this fiscal year, and the new appropriation will be applied once that grant is the opportunity is gone out. And then we have the DBI. Again, it's been awarded. Then we have our formula grants, Burn Skip, Coverdell. You have FIPSA, and we are into our new year. The JAG grants. And on the JAG grants, you'll have a line called STIP. That is our state, what we are required. This is the one grant where we get the money up front. All of our other grants are on a reimbursement basis. So our sub-grantee spends the money, we reimburse them, then we go to the federal government and said, we've spent this money, we're in the hole this much, please reimburse us. However, JAG is paid out that $1 million all at once. And so we're required to put it into a basically a savings account that's also invested. And so we get interest on that money, and that gets put back toward the grant. So when you see the word STIP, that's what that is. And you can see that, like, for example, the JAG 22 grant has gotten in since, as of 11/19, $81,517 in interest. We awarded out $80,000, and the 15/17 has come in since we awarded out that money. Our JRJ grants are in, and we have awarded out or spent all of the 23 money, and we have a little more for the 24 that will be used in the next round. Again, NCHIP, our RSAT, all of these further grants here are all the formula grants, and we're doing well. In Title II, there are subdivisions of the money, and one part of that money is to support the Youth Justice Council, and they have knowledge that they have money available to spend, and so they are working toward figuring out how to use that best to provide more information and to help with all the youth justice programs. And then we have the discretionary grants, and currently we don't have any discretionary grants open at the federal level. Hopefully when they open that up, we'll get some. And then finally, there is the Project Safe Neighborhood, which is a grant that is actually sent out by the U.S. District Attorney's Office, and we're just acting as a fiscal agent. We just pass it through, so you guys, we just put that in so you have an idea that we're working with that money under our auspices, but you don't have any say. So, does anybody have any questions?
Any questions for Tammy on finances?
Chair, I just have a comment to add. So a couple updates regarding what Tammy addressed on House Bill 117, the data warehouse 2 staff for the $252,000. We have, Janice completed the job descriptions for those, the job posting. They have been submitted to the Department of Administration, our HR support, and those are hopefully we're on the way to getting those posted. So hopefully January we'll start having interviews, end of January, February. Then the judicial data for $500,000, as a reminder, that is pass-through money that comes through us to courts. We have a meeting next week with courts, and so with board member Dave McAlpin and his IT person Ryan Davies to sit down and talk about how that's going to be passed through, talking a little bit about how we're going to keep it within our normal procedures here on how we do pass-through funding and adjust it to meet their needs, but keeping it consistent with our procedures. The other update that I wanted to share with you is regarding on 2 of 7 of the financial report is the domestic violence intervention. It's labeled as misdemeanor probation. You guys, I know you're aware of this, but I wanted to bring up the language to make sure that that we do a refresher. That program was adjusted this last legislative session, and so the language that was changed, it says community, and this is a state grant, and so it says communities for misdemeanor probation officers or compliance officers to monitor compliance. Let me start over. It says the Montana Board of Crime Control shall use the money in the DVI account to fund a domestic violence intervention program to provide grants to communities for misdemeanor probation officers or compliance officers to monitor compliance with the change. Instead of saying sentencing, it now says court-ordered requirements for offenders. So court-ordered offenders, requirements for offenders convicted of, the addition is convicted of or charged with the offense of partner family member assault, strangulation, or violation of order of protection. So they opened it up essentially to court ordered and then also charged with. So I don't know if that will impact who applies for the grant, but it did open up the scope.
It essentially opens it up to pre-trial.
Yep, because I think the previous statute was convicted. Yep, so bond.
Very good. Anything else? Okay, any other questions on the finances? I don't think we need a motion to accept the finances, do we? Okay. Very good, Tammy, thank you. Yep. Okay, moving right along then. Public comments on any matters within the board's jurisdiction. I don't think we have any public comment. Do we have public comment? None at all. What's wrong with our public? They trust us, I guess. Yeah. Okay, now we'll move into other board business. 2026 board action plan. Kayla?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chair. So one thing that I'd like the board in the next year is for us to get together and have a work plan as to what we want to work toward in the next year, and really have it focus on education and really a refresher. So I can come up with a plan or a draft plan as to what that would look like, and then throughout the year at our meetings we kind of tackle the topics. And so what I'm like to get to is, for example, given an overview of burn skip, like just giving a refresher on JAG, on VOCA, and making sure that the board members, because we'll have new board members as well, and here soon, additional new board members, just a foundation of the different opportunities that we provide, just another check-in on our structure as an organization, what our roles and responsibilities are, and have that conversation, but put it within a work plan. And so getting to a place where we have a refresher on the various grants, on the organization, on what we do. And then that allows us to open up conversation as a board on whether it's maybe we want to have a detailed conversation about match, or we want to have a detailed conversation about geographical priority points. So just setting a foundation and then going deeper into discussion as the board sees fit for conversation topics. So I would recommend to the board, I can get together a work plan, kind of something that's spread out over the year, and bring it to potentially the next meeting, March or June, and start going from there.
That sounds good. Any questions or direction on that? Then just have her bring it to the next board and go over it. Okay. All right, travel expense voucher.
just a reminder. If you haven't, please fill it out and leave it here. That way you don't have to fax it or take a photo.
Where did we get that? Is it in here?
It should be in your book. Yes, sir.
There it is.
Yes.
Okay.
Probably somewhere.
The facts, we have to have it in every office. Some like doctors and stuff like that.
You never know.
I just wanted to get it done.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, so you've been warned on your travel expense voucher. Anything else? Anything else that you want to bring up?
Yes, sir.
Anybody from the committee? Anything at all?
Mr. Chair, I was just gonna ask because I know that our conference next year is in Fairmont. Do we know if they're gonna be still under construction then?
I don't know. I can, as Hannah and I work through conference prep, we can figure it out and let you know.
Because I was just thinking that if they are still under construction, that may impact folks' willingness to come. And so I was just curious about that.
Yeah. No, thank you for the reminder because I haven't thought about it. So we'll reach out and see what we can find out.
Okay, anything else? One thing, Kayla, that I kind of noticed is there's been some changes here, obviously, and the way you do things and whatnot. I've seen some changes, and I'm kind of an old-fashioned person. It takes me a while to get used to changes and whatever happened. I think you're doing a very good job, and I think things are fine here. The one thing I did notice, we have a couple new board members here. I don't know if they're familiar with the staff that we had or not. And I would kind of recommend that we introduce them to staff, maybe at the next board meeting, if staff come in here and we could introduce them to the new board meeting. Maybe explain exactly what they do and things like that. So they'd have it off there just for that one time. But, I don't know. It's just, I'm just used to them sitting back there, and doing whatever. And it's been different.
Sure.
So,
yeah. Thanks, Rick. Yeah, I did reach out to Alan Doan and I will sit down with him and have the onboarding meeting and share about the agency and the board and the responsibilities.
Okay. All right. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, I would say that would be something to add to that board action plan is if we wanted to do
sure
that kind of stuff, because I think it is helpful. So.
Yeah. And then I think it'd give them more of a sense of, being a part of everything too. So
context.
I know that's what normally they would do. So, all right. Well, I appreciate it. If there's nothing else, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay. Got a motion to adjourn. Second. Undebatable. We're done. You bet. Everybody too. Travel safe out there. Supposed to snow tonight, tomorrow. So yeah, 5 o'clock is supposed to start. They always tell lies though. So.